Welcome to Rogue Bogues, the basketball series with myself, Andrew Bogut, and Mike Procopio at Hoop Consultants, episode 38. Pro, how's it going?
Bogues, how you doing, brother? Just another fucking day at the circus, my friend.
That's it. Bread and circuses, baby. That's what we like to see. But we've got a big show today where we're going to actually preview every team in the Eastern Conference. We'll do the West next week, so stay tuned for that. We'll get through some news as we usually do. And also, we have later on in the show, we had a few people give us some good feedback about the segment we did with Ethan Sherwood-Strauss around NBA fraudsters and financial advice. And there's a few people that have reached out that have asked if we could give some advice around how to better handle your finances as a professional athlete, or what advice would I give. So I've put together some tips. Now I have to give that statement of this is by no means any financial advice. Please consult your tax agent and all that bullshit. But let's get right into it, man. We're going to season preview. We're going to try to give a good followers and people out there who we think's going to be playoff bound and playoff bounced. Pretty simple. Now, playoffs for us are the top 10 because of that playing game. They've changed the rules on us and we're classifying the playoffs as top 10 pro. So we can't stipulate if we think they're going to be, a top 4, top 5, or they're going to be within that bottom bracket. But I'll go first. We'll start with the New York Knicks. I think they're going to improve, and I base that on they'll probably finish around about where they did last season, but I think they'll be a better team. I equate the Kemba signing to a poor man's kind of D Rose when D Rose was with Thibs, just from a usage and getting the ball in his hands from an isolation point of view, which they did a lot with D Rose, obviously when he won the MVP, and then they had that little run there with Noah and Boozer and all that. That was really good, and I think Thibs does a good job with isolation guards. Now, what will that mean for Julius Randle's usage? Because last season his usage was at a career high and he had a hell of a year. I'm not sure, but I think they'll be better. He gets a lot out of his high-scoring guards, so I think that's a big plus. And they really struggled offensively, pro, last playoffs. They really dried up. They were pretty good defensively, but I think this Kemba acquisition is going to make them a little bit of a better team. I've got them playoff bound, bro. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think the same. I think they'll be playoff bound. I agree that Kemba Walker sort of signing was a great signing for them. Although him and Rose would be good just for more firepower. It'll be interesting how Tibbs plays heavy minutes with the starters, and his rotation players. So it'll be interesting how Kemba's body sort of reacts to that. But they do have talent, and I think Obi Toppin didn't really have a great year last year. He was their first round pick from last draft. I think he's going to be better. Evan Fournier is a good pickup for them. Alec Burks is a good player. Randall, I think, is going to have another all-star season. Mitchell Robinson will be big if he could stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and Nerlens well at that center spot. I do say I agree with you, Bogues, on this. I think we definitely agree. I think they're playoff bound.
And Mitchell Robinson, I think if he can stay healthy and really play that, I don't think he's as good passer as what Joakim Noah was in Tibbs' system, but he's probably a better shot blocker than Joakim Noah was. If he can just be that rim presence, he doesn't need the ball. He's going to be living off dunker, short corner kind of dunks, alley-oops, offensive rebounds, and when he's healthy, he can be a 15 and 15 guy with 3 or 4 blocks and cause some trouble there, and I think that's going to be his role. So I agree there. I really think the Mitchell Robinson thing for them is key. If he can stay healthy, and then you bring Noel off the bench, who's a similar type player, I think they got a chance. Brooklyn Nets, for me, championship or bust, obviously. Even without Kyrie, I'm putting it out there. I think health is the key for them. I think they're going to be a little bit more improved just from the point of view of playing together. Now, last season, they never really had the big three healthy in stretches, and we kind of commented on whether that would hurt them in the long run, not playing together enough. But I'm going to call it now, Pro. I'm saying Kevin Durant's going to win the MVP. I think everything's poised towards that. He came back from the injury. He had a fantastic season last season whilst managing the injury and coming back from that. Going into a fantastic Olympics, at the end of the day, he was the guy that nobody could stop during that Olympic campaign whenever they needed a bucket. I think this is going to catapult him back to, not that he wasn't in the upper echelon, he was, but he came back from that injury. But I'm saying he's going to be the MVP of the NBA season next year if he stays healthy. And obviously they're playoff bound. They're going to be top 2 in my opinion, bro.
Yeah, I think they're going to be very good regardless of what they have, if Kyrie plays or not. I think their lineup is very explosive. James Harden's a better passer than Kyrie is anyway. Like, he's a better, I know he gets that ISO, sort of reputation. The way he plays, it's not the sexiest of styles to play, but he's a great passer, especially when they're up tempo. You still got him and Durant in the lineup, and then you got great role players in Joe Harris and Bruce Brown. You got LaMarcus Aldridge if he could stay healthy, and everything goes well with him. And then Blake Griffin played well off the bench last year for them. So I think they're gonna. Yeah, I mean, I think they're playoff bound, obviously. Kevin Durant I had as last year as my MVP. I think Luka Doncic will win it this year, but I think KD's probably the most dedicated basketball player to loving the game and playing and competing than anyone else in this league. I mean, the guy just loves to compete. He loves to play. He's got the work ethic. He's a great player to watch. It's magical to watch the fucking guy. And, I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be right in the championship conversation, even without Kyrie. I think that will be rectified in a trade, if anything else. So, if you add other pieces to that, as well as what they got, I think they got a legitimate chance.
Do you think LaMarcus plays? I haven't really heard much from their camp about where he's at. Obviously coming back, missing a little bit of time. Do you think he'll get in that lineup and find some minutes?
Bogues, I think by All-Star break, he's either going to have to retire or he's going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground there. I think he'll probably need to find his legs under him, as you know. But I think by All-Star break, 41 games in or so, I think that, he'll be ready to rock. He'll be ready to do whatever. And look, he wasn't all that great when he left the game as far as like his productivity. Obviously, his body's banged up a little bit, and, it's banged up a lot from all that mileage he put on it throughout his career. But I think he could help them. You get like a three-headed monster with him and Blake and Paul Millsap. You could just sort of like mismatch those guys around. Look, you don't need anybody to do anything great there. You've got your two superstars, and three if you rectify that with Irving. But all you need is a bunch of guys like Patty Mills running around making shots, Joe Harris making shots. You got, like I said, Millsap and Griffin doing their thing. And even their rookie Cam Thomas might be able to throw in some minutes here and there and give him something. So they got a bunch of guys that know how to play together. They've got a great coach. I'm pretty fired up to watch the team play.
Yeah, Joe Harris is going to have to bounce back a season considering his playoffs, so I think should be a much better player with a bit of motivation behind him to finish the season off better. Philly, obviously the Ben Simmons saga. My question is around their team chemistry now that he's coming back. It's we both believe he will be traded, but let's say he hangs around for a month or two, it could be somewhat detrimental. That locker room is going to be a strange environment to be around. That we all know, we've all been part of that, the awkward silence kind of in the room when these kind of things happen. Kind of like Ben walks in, then walks out of the room, and guys are making little comments and whatever. I think they're going to be a clunky playoff bound team. They're going to be playoff bound, obviously, but I think it's just going to be clunky till they figure out what the hell their roster is and what their identity is. I think if I'm Doc, I'm building this thing, not that he hasn't already, completely around Joel, because Ben's got one foot out the door. So even if Ben's there, you play him, he helps you get some wins, but you don't go all in towards his strengths. I think you start building to what you would be as Joel as your mainstay. But yeah, they're playoff bound, but I think it's going to be a bumpy road, a few head knocks, and they should be somewhere in the middle there, 4 to 7. But yeah, I think it's going to be a rough run for them. Yeah,
what happens in this league? People become fucking pussies as far as talking to players and telling them the truth. You dance around this shit. The one good thing about having Doc Rivers, and the best thing is the guy, for the most part, like lines you up and can tell you the truth. The problem is they're way past the fucking Mendoza line on this stuff. They're past the point of no return. But like, if you don't like what you're going to get for him trade wise, and you got to get him in a room, Bogues, and say, look, you don't want to be here. We don't exactly want you here either. We get it, but we both got to play the part for at least one more season. If we're not going to be able to move you, you got to be able to play the part, and we got to play the part. And look, this is the best for everybody, to get everybody on board with you being here for at least another year, to bring your trade value up, to bring you somewhere because we're not just going to trade you for anything. If that's the case, I don't know what they want to do. I'm not a mind reader, but I'm tired. Like when situations like this come up, the guy's on your roster. Everybody knows the situation. You're not hiding anything from anybody. His trade value is at an all-time low. You got absolutely no fucking leverage. You know, it's like coming in with a 92 Chevy and thinking you got $40,000 of fucking trade-in value to your fucking dealership. The guy will tell you to fuck off. You don't have that. The guy, so you got to like say, look, if you're going to be here, it's going to be clunky for a while, but like we're all in on you. You're all in on us until we can get you the fuck out of here. And you want to leave. We want you gone. They obviously don't want him there, but like it can't be like this. It can't be an Anthony Davis situation when he demanded a trade in New Orleans. It can't be this bullshit because it's a bad product. It's like, having him on the floor if he doesn't want to be there and you don't want him, and it shows. It's like having two fucking boxes that took money to take a dive. It's just an ugly.
That's my point, bro. So it's like if Morey draws a line in the sand and says you need to report, you need to play yourself into form so we can move you. It's a mutual kind of agreement we're going to have. We're trying to get you out of here. You need to play well for us. But to what detriment of the chemistry of the team? To what detriment of a Matisse Thybulle, who plays a similar role, similar positions at times for him, or Tobias Harris? They're losing. The other thing is, we all know that if he's got 1 foot out of the door, the minute any adversity hits, if he's with Philly for his first couple of months, what's going to happen? He's going to, that's human nature. It's like, adversity's hit. We're 4 straight losses. The coach is on my ass. I'm not going to respond. I'm trying to get out of here. I'm not invested in this, and that's the concern. I'm not blaming Ben for that. That's just the reality of when these situations arise and you've got 1 foot out the door. You're not fully bought in. I don't care who you are. You're not fully bought in mentally and physically for the team. So if you get chewed out by a coach at halftime, you're going to ignore it. You're not going to adjust. You're just going to kind of like, oh well, I'm out of here soon anyway. That's the other concern you have. And that's a team that, arguably was primed for a championship the last couple of seasons or close to. Remember, Kawhi Leonard's fadeaway, in the corner, bounce, potentially could have been them in the NBA Finals. So they were so close, and that's the bounces of the NBA. But it's just a tough one, I think, when you're putting the detriment of your team culture and environment. It's just got to be fucking awkward in that locker room the moment he walks in there, especially when you read Danny Green's comments. They were there was a bit of clickbait involved by SportsCenter. I get it, but he basically said something along the lines of, look, we don't need him to shoot if he doesn't want to shoot. You just need to report. And then someone's actually, which we're going to get to a little bit later with the Ben thing, but we might as well talk about it now that we're on Philly. There's someone supposedly from the team has leaked that, we know how these things go with leaks, but it's out there. The fact that it's coming from that locker room is why I'm bringing it up, that he has to now show his face in that locker room, that before Game 7 against Atlanta, he volunteered that he was a close exposure to someone, hoping that someone on the team is saying this, he was hoping he'd get COVID-19 positive so he didn't have to play in Game 7 because he was that fried. Now, who knows where the truth is to that? I'm not discussing that. My point is that someone even leaked this. That can't be good for team chemistry. And I know, if you're Ben going into that environment, you've probably got some reservations. So that's my point. I just think that the chemistry and just your day-to-day with that elephant in the room, I think Morey's days are numbered for leverage. I think they need to eventually, these next couple of weeks, they got to bite the bullet. And if they get shafted a little bit on that deal, I would argue it's better for their team chemistry because they then know who the fuck they are going into a season. Where right now, who are you, Philly? Like, are you still going to play open floor basketball for Ben to attack and get his value up at the detriment of Joel Embiid, then having to float to the 3? Whereas in 2 months' time, Joel's going to be 90% of your usage. That's kind of the debate I'm having in my head, bro.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I agree. Like, we talked about the trade, so we won't even talk about like where and when and how. But if you're not going to trade him, like if right now, you might as well say, like, if you're not happy with the deals and you're not going to do it, you might as well say, we're not trading him this year. We are not trading him. He is a 76er. But say that in November. Don't say that in fucking trade deadline. You say it now. At least you put it out there and you mean it. Now, players won't trust you and they won't believe it. Shocker that, somebody from a team will lie about it in the media and not follow through. But I think that that's the only way to go. Like, you either deal him now or you just say, fuck it, we are not dealing him. He is a 76er. We are going to roll with him and Embiid, and this is our team, and we guarantee you he will not be traded. Now, you can't really do that in reality because you always gotta try to upgrade your roster and things, but I think you got to go either one. I think you either got to deal him in the next few weeks or you got to just come out and say he is not being traded for like everybody's sort of benefit. And that leak about the whole COVID thing, who the fuck knows if it's true or not, but I wouldn't put it past the team to put to leak that himself, just to make them look, again, you know how it is. It's a nuclear arms race to see who's got the upper hand in this shit and who looks better and how to, and it's bullshit. It's fucking total bullshit. Agents do it, teams do it, players do it, just to get an upper hand like they're fucking 6 years old.
Yeah, it's all about leverage. It's literally a chess poker game right now between Daryl Morey and the rest of the NBA. It's a chess game between the rest of the NBA and Daryl Morey. So you'll have rival agents. You'll have rival GMs going through the agent trying to leak stuff that's detrimental to Philly's prospects, and then Philly leaking stuff to, and that's just the dirtiness of the game. You got to kind of read between all those lines. But it is a dirty game, and it will be interesting to see what direction they take. Boston, so we obviously both have Philly playoff bound. Boston, I think they'll be solid, but I mean, I don't know. I've just got a hunch I could see them falling. They were 7th last season, so this isn't, a pick that's off the landscape, but I think they could potentially be a playing team, bro. I don't know. I've got a bad feeling about Boston. I think Tatum coasts at times. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it, bro. I think they'll be solid, but I just think they're gonna be 8, 9, 10. I don't think they fall out, but I think they're going to be at the bottom part of that. New coach as well, new system, supposedly a more strict, harder disciplinarian type coach. Where do you see them, pro? I mean, they're kind of a tough one for me to pick, but I have them at the bottom of the East playoff run.
Yeah, Bogues, I'm back and forth on Boston, because look, they weren't very good last year, and you lose as much as people want to bitch about Kemba Walker. The guy still averaged about 19 points a game for them, and he still was a weapon. And you gave him away for almost nothing in Horford. I think Horford's sort of done. He's not done, but like he's not going to really be the high level player that he used to be, just like anyone else. But who's aged and played. The question is, if you're going to put him at 8 or 9, who leapfrogs them? I love Chicago, what they did in the offseason. Me, my heart on for fucking Miami. They're always good. Brooklyn's going to be good. Like the thing is, if you're going to put him in borderline or you're going to put him in play-in, like who leapfrogs them? The problem is the fucking bottom of the bottom is fucking brutal for the Eastern Conference. So I don't think anybody could really come from the bottom and leapfrog him. It will have to be teams like Indiana, which I don't think is very good, but they're well coached and they got sort of some decent players. Boston, like you said, they've got way more talent than a lot of these teams that are going to be in the same mix. But I don't trust Tatum yet. Brown's good, but he's got to consistently stay at that level, and he's going to be good. But I don't completely trust Boston's roster and all that shit about fucking, hard line in the sand. We'll see about what happens at hard line in the sand when you got to deal with Jason Tatum and saying that, well, he's not going to do the same things he did last year. Well, we'll see. You will see, because we know that players run this league, and there are only a couple of places where the coach will have enough support from the organization to do it, say what they need to say, and do what they need to do to make sure culture is restored. So we'll see what happens. I think Udoka's got good intentions in mind, but they're good intentions versus reality situation. Let's see if they're still hearing that voice and listening to that voice in January, February if the team's struggling. Look, their starting 5 is okay. You got Schroeder, Smart, Brown, Tatum, probably either Robert Williams or Horford, starting 5. I sort of like Cantor. They got him in the roster too. I just don't like their bench. I don't think they're good enough. And that's the thing. I think they'll probably be, to me, like a 7, and we'll go over this in later episodes about ranking and stuff. I could see them at like a 7, 8. I don't think they're going to go into the play-in. I'm not a huge fan. I think teams like New York and Chicago are going to surpass them this year. Definitely Chicago, possibly New York. So, we'll see what happens. I think they're playoff bound for sure. The question is obviously where do we rank it?
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see, but they're basically banking on their big 3 of they paid Smart, Tatum, and Brown, and Schroeder's a nice piece that they got cheaply because he just lit $80 million on fire.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think they're going to make a lot of noise even if they get there. Toronto, this is a strange roster. Have you looked at that roster?
Yeah, I have.
It's young. It's just a strange one to me. But anyway, look, they're stuck between a rebuild and fringe playoff, in my opinion. I think they're surging downwards towards rebuild. It is essentially, you look at a championship team not more than a couple of seasons ago. It's Pascal Siakam's team, right? I'm not sold on him as a number one option.
Not even close.
I think he's a great player. He got paid in that finals. He was phenomenal because we kind of had him as the dare guy and probably disrespect him a little bit, and he burned us. Credit to him, but I just don't think he's a number one guy. But I think it seems like he thinks he is. But yeah, I don't see them. They're playoff bounced for sure. I don't know what direction their roster's going. It's interesting because they have a coach there that wants to win. So it'll be interesting to see where you think they sit and whether they end up just saying, let's just blow this thing up. But they don't have much more left to blow up. I mean, they got rid of Lowry and a few other pieces, and this is kind of all they got. They got to go young again.
Yeah, Bogues. I think they're a play-in team at best. They're probably sitting at probably 10. If I had to rank them, off the top of my head, they don't have much on their roster. Siakam, in my opinion, is not a number one option. I think he can put up numbers on a bad team. I think they were good collectively when he really was rolling with Lowry and Leonard, and then obviously those guys are gone. There's a lot difference between being a guy who, gets paid and can sort of not coast, but can sort of like let someone else take the reins, and then you just put in your day's work and put in your numbers. I just don't think he's very good. I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, a very good player, probably a top 40 or top 50 player in the league. I just don't think he's a top 30, a top 30 number one option, on a team. But, they got Van Fleet, they got him. OG got hurt last year. It'll be interesting what they do with Dragic. I love Scotty Barnes. He's a young kid out of Florida that they have. I think he's a very good player. He's a rookie Florida State, I'm sorry, not Florida. I think he's a very good player. I think he plays hard. Gary Trent Jr. is a nice little player. They've got good role players. And the problem is they're sitting in there, probably middle of the pack. They're not going to draft high enough unless they get lucky to really get a showstopper, and they don't really have the team that advance in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting. I would think that they're going to have to go young. Dragic is probably going to get traded. I've heard rumors of Dallas, but some of the players that they're expecting to try to get from Dallas doesn't want to get rid of.
Well, especially because he'll probably be a buyout anyway if he doesn't get traded. So there's not much value there, right?
I agree. Like if I'm Dallas, I'm not giving up anything. Dallas has the makings of trying to be a Final Four team in the West. So I think that I don't think I'm giving any assets. You can probably get them, especially with the relationship with Luka and Dragic, and they were rumored to trade Dragic to Dallas a couple of years ago. Somehow the trade got botched up, and they ended up acquiring another player. But yeah, I don't see this team going anywhere. Although I think I would say because we're ranking top 10, I think they're playoff bound. Yeah, I guess I'll put, but just because the floor of the Eastern Conference is so fucking bad. So I would say they're playoff bound.
Okay, and they are. When you look at their roster, they look like a tank-bound roster. We got, let's see, this is years of experience from top to bottom on their current roster. Now they'll make some cuts for camp, obviously, but rookie, 4 years, 1 year, 13 years being Dragic, who's probably going to be gone. 1 year, 4 years, 3 years, rookie, 3 years, 3 years, 1, 5, 4, 4, 3, 5. So the experience is all. They've got one guy on their roster above 30 years old. That's Dragic. He's going to be gone. They don't have much experience on their roster. This is a tank roster if I've ever seen it. Hopefully they can develop their young guys, but I'm not buying it. I'm going against what you say. I think they're going to be playoff bounced. Going to be at the bottom of that Eastern Conference somewhere, because I just can't see who replaces someone being, Toronto replacing someone that I've got in my 10 as of now. So we'll watch that space. Detroit, look, young rebuilding team. I think they'll be fun and exciting to watch if you can put aside the losses, if that makes sense. They're going to be playoff bounced. They have some good, exciting pieces in the draft. We're still not sure which way they go. Still not sure, if Jeremy Grant is a top 1, 2, 3 on a team. He had a decent year stat-wise, but, on a bad team, who can say? But, yeah, I think they'll be fun and exciting just to watch their trajectory, but that's if you don't pull your hair out, taking a lot into wins or losses, pro. So I got playoff bounce for them, obviously.
Yeah, playoff bounced. I think they know that. I don't think they're kidding anybody. They do have good young players. Sadiq Bey, they're very high on. Cade Cunningham, of course, they're their draft pick, their number one pick from this year. They've Jeremy Grant. It is what it is. You need bodies though. Like, I don't think you can go full tank mode and just have all these young rookies in your rotation. I think you definitely need some other players like a Jeremy Grant, where once these guys start developing, you get him. Obviously he's a big chunk of your salary cap, but you're going to be bad. You have this kid, and if Cade Cunningham in 2 years' time from now could really develop into a top 3 player on a team, now you put him a Grant, and then some of these other guys develop, and you could sort of start like put them into these boxes and group these guys together, and maybe 4 or 5 years you're going to keep a few, like 3 out of your top 8 right now, and really go forward with them. So yeah, I don't expect much from them. I don't think they do either. I think they know their rebuild on this, but maybe it's a team a few years from now we can look and say, yeah, they're in the right direction. So yeah, playoff bounced. Right. Yes, bounced.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's my lisp. I apologize.
There's no S in it.
So hey, when I'm wrong about half these fucking picks, Bogues, I could always blame the lisp. So
or COVID.
Oh, COVID. Yeah. I'll talk to Pelinka, so don't worry about it.
That's right. All right. Milwaukee Bucks, obviously top 2 or 3 in the East in my book. Now, I don't know if we don't want to take too much from preseason as gospel, but Giannis' shot looks a very good pro. He's changed. It looks much different than last season. It's way less hesitation. Obviously, the hitch seems to be in the rearview mirror so far. Now, it is preseason, less pressure, inflow, no injuries, up and down, all that kind of stuff that gets thrown out the window when the season starts. But shit, man, he's shot the ball pretty well in preseason. I like it. Even just that little 10-foot fadeaway, I think for him is going to be huge when they try to get to boxes and elbows defensively and make him shoot that. Now he's confident doing it. He looks very, very good in the preseason considering he's come off the year that he has. Hangover would have been excused for him for sure. Rodney Hood, if he can find half of himself of what we know he was capable of in the past, now we haven't seen it for a couple of years. I like that addition if he can find half of himself because they need a good bench punch. They didn't really have that last season, even though they won the championship. They will get DiVincenzo back, which is a great addition for them, but they're going to be in the top 4 in my opinion again. They're going to be somewhere in that mix. They're obviously playoff bound without a doubt, but they'll be I think top 4 when it's all said and done, East and West, they'll be in there somewhere. I think it highly high potential for it to go Milwaukee, Brooklyn again if the seeding lines up. What do you think?
Yeah, I second that. I mean, they're a very good veteran team now. They've tasted winning. I agree with the Giannis thing. He's shooting the ball great. Look, when you have when you're comfortable and you're confident, especially when you've had the success in the playoffs, you know how that is, Bogues. You've seen it with Golden State front seat. What that does, what winning a championship and playing well when you have to produce in the playoffs does for your ego. It does for your, gets your juices flowing as a player, and it really steps you up in your development. I don't care if you're a young kid. I don't care if you're an older player. If you finally find that, you sometimes turn the corner on it. And look, I've been very critical of Giannis' shooting, and I'll admit it when I'm wrong. He was struggling at times in the playoffs, and he just sort of tunnel visioned it and made all his free throws and made some big shots. And he's a worker and he loves the game. So I know he probably put in a lot of fucking work in the offseason as well. And sometimes with that hit stuff, like you got to work on it. It's a long-term project, especially in the offseason. You can make a lot of leeway. You can make a lot of headway with it. So I expect this team to be right there. I've always been a a Rodney Hood fan, and he always disappoints for one reason or another. You know how it is, Bogues. Sometimes guys just don't have it when they really need to lift their game. Now, the good thing is he's got a bunch of players that are better than him on this team, so his role doesn't have to be as high. So, those starters could really take a lot of pressure off him. And then you got tough kids like Pat Connaughton. Grayson Allen's not a bad little pickup. Bobby Portis's game has really stepped up. So they've got some other guys that could really take the pressure off him, where all he has to do is come in and maybe straight line drive or make a shot and then get hot a little bit. And yeah, it could be a big part. This team, hey, I wouldn't put it past this team to be able to beat Brooklyn again, even with all their guys, if these guys get it rolling, because they play so well together. They've had that success that Brooklyn hasn't had yet. And, they've got this playoff success. They won a championship. They love playing with each other. They haven't really lost a lot, as far as off their roster. So I see this team going really deep into the playoffs. Playoff bound.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. I think they, like you said, they probably got their windows still open for another couple of years, and they're going to go all in towards that. They'll probably pick up some veterans before the buyout. I assume again they could help a la PJ Tucker or something like that. That'll help them get over the top. But I think they're still a very, very good basketball team from top to bottom. Very well coached, and yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. The Chicago Bulls, exciting new roster, Pro. They've made a lot of changes. They've gone with a whole different array of players and their playing style. I don't know if it's a case of something that's just new and shiny being good because it's new and shiny or not. For me, I just can't pick if this roster fits or not. It's just I don't know. I might be completely wrong. They could go number one in the East, but it just seems like a strange roster put together. You got Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic needs his post touches. Then you've got DeMar DeRozan, who's not the best three-point shooter at times, next to Vuce in the post, so he's more of a long two guy. You throw Caruso in there. Stanley Johnson's obviously in there. There's a few other pieces, but Kobe White's development is that then hindered now because you got other guards in front of him. I don't know. I don't know how it fits, Pro. I think they're going to be playoff bound in my opinion, but I just wonder, are they a little bit of that new and shiny feel that you get with a new car, and then the battery goes flat the next day?
Yeah, new shiny feel for sure, because they picked up some big names. They made the Vucevic trade at trade deadline, so that was a big one. They pick up Lonzo Ball. They spent some money picking up Ball and DeRozan, and Caruso. So they made some headway picking up some names. It'll be interesting because I don't know if they have enough consistent shooting around Vucevic when he starts getting doubled in the post. Lonzo Ball had a great shooting year last year in comparison to what he's done in the past. You got LaVine, who obviously could score, at will. But, I don't know exactly what Patrick Williams is about. I don't know with Caruso and Lonzo and, what Kobe White. Kobe White would obviously get time, but Caruso's going to have to get some time too. So that's going to hurt.
They paid him to get time. Yeah. So.
No question about it. So, yeah, I think these guys could be better than the Celtics. They might be able to win a round possibly. And I think they'll, if I have to compare them, because, Chicago, New York, and Boston are sort of going to be jockeying for a position. And I still think these guys are good because I really like DeRozan because he plays hard. He's not great, but I think he's good. I think he's solid. Lonzo's had a good year. Maybe a change of scenery is going to do him good. And, Vucevic is always a 20 and 10 guy. So it'll be an interesting deal. I agree. I don't know how far they can go. I don't think they have enough shooting. If I say they don't have enough shooting, they're going to be breaking fucking all of Golden State's records with their shooting. How I make fucking predictions.
Well, I think a guy that might play on their roster that probably will fall into minutes is Matt Thomas. He's not an athletic guy, not a great defender, but a knockdown three-point shooter at the best of times, really, really efficient from the three-point line. And if you're playing Vooch and DeRozan and that floor's starting to shrink a little bit, I think he'll be a key piece for him to get 10 or 15 spot minutes. That if, just a no-leave guy. He's really the only guy I've looked on that roster. I mean, that absolute under no circumstances no-leave guy, right? So he might fall into a little bit of minutes more than he's probably used to.
Yeah, I don't know much about Thomas, but, I watched him a little bit, but I don't really know much about him. I know I know he can shoot it a little bit. So yeah, I mean, if they're going to need him, because they need to surround those guys with shooting and they don't have it right now, consistent shooting. Like I said, they've got a couple of guys that put up, obviously LaVine can make shots. Vucevic has added that to his game, shooting the ball. But again, Ball has to show that. That's how I judge a guy's development in shooting. If he could do it from, it's easy to do it for a year, on losing teams, but could you do it in consecutive years going forward? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think they're playoff bound for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, Matt Thomas just quickly shot it at 52% in 2019-20. 38% 2021, and then a decline last season with Chicago at the 33%. That's for the preseason, 33%. So he's declined a little bit, but he's still a guy. He's a Kyle Korver type, in my opinion, that you're just not going to leave the 3-point line. But I just think you'll fall into some minutes by accident to space the floor. Cleveland Cavs. I mean, to me, they're they're probably a little bit above Detroit, but still they'll be fun to watch because they're young and flash. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games. I think they're playoff bounced. I think they're in a situation where they're still trying to figure out whose team is Cleveland, bro. I mean, they've got two young, Garland, Sexton are their stars. You factor in now they've brought in Rubio. They paid Jared Allen as their franchise big, but it's out of those two guards in Garland and Sexton. Whose team is it, bro?
Yeah, I hate that fucking whose team is bullshit. I despise it. I just go out and fucking play.
But you know that's the mentality of young guys. Like most teams,
no question about it.
They'll be looking at teams like, hey, Milwaukee's Giannis's team. Hey, you know, LeBron's team's the Lakers. Like, and they'll probably be getting asked by their boys and this and that, and the media might pump it up, and it gets in those guys' heads, and that can be a problem. We've seen it for the old school '90s fans, the Triple J's in Dallas. You know, Jamal Mashburn, Jim Jackson, Jason Kidd broke up that which was supposed to be a potential championship team down the line of young stars. You know, there's been numerous instances of that, and it can rear its ugly. I hate it as well, but I think it definitely plays, and that'll be something in those guys' heads. Yeah,
if Cleveland played in the ACB, they'd get relegated to fucking LEB Gold, so I wouldn't worry about whose fucking team it is anyway. So I just don't like these a bunch of guys. Look, to me, it's fucking Evan Mobley's team. None of these guys are really any good. Let's fucking be honest. Let's call it the way it is. Garland and Sexton can put up points. They're not winning players yet. They haven't proved it one fucking bit. No offense to them. They just haven't proved it yet. Evan Mobley, I don't know if he could play or not, but he's got a lot of fucking talent. He could be a Bam type. He's got some things he does pretty well offensively. He's got size. He seems like he likes the game. Jared Allen, they signed. Kevin Love doesn't want to fucking be there.
I was going to ask you, what do they do with him? Because he wants to be there. He doesn't want to be there, but he doesn't want to take a buyout, doesn't want to take a discount. What's going on?
He wants to be there until he kicks the fucking ball in the stands for not playing and fucking runs out, and then you know how that's gonna go. So that's not gonna go well. Jared Allen, I really like. I think he's a solid big. He runs. He could block shots. He could roll hard to the rim. He's a pretty good player. He's developed, but you know how this league is. It's not really built for too many big guys. So Mobley's your number one guy. He's got to be a guy that develops because you got nothing really else on your roster. You got to develop him. You got Allen as your veteran big going forward. I don't know what's going to happen with Garland and Sexton. I don't know if you're going to have to deal them. You got Laurie Marketing who's there. So what the fuck happens with him? So they've got some issues. How are you going to fit all that in? Is Marketing a 3? Because last I checked, I thought he was a stretch 4. So I don't know how you could put him in the wing and have him, Mobley, and Allen in the same lineup and really be good. Those fucking Garland and Sexton better be like fucking Joe Dumars and fucking Isaiah Thomas back in the 80s. I don't see this team going anywhere. I think you're going to have to move Garland and or Sexton. You have to say it's Evan Mobley, it's our guy. Jared Allen is going to be the complimentary player, the very high level complimentary player. You don't really have much on your roster. Oh, they picked up Kevin Pangos. I didn't know that. Kevin Pangos was a really good, played at Zenit in Russia last year. We actually had him in camp for the Mavericks in Summer League. He's really developed into a really good player. He's a good third point guard, but they don't really have anything on their roster coming off the bench like Osman, Denzel Valentine. You don't really have anything else that you could really rally around. They're relegated to LEB Gold until I say otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you can handle the losses, they'll be fun to watch some nights, and some nights you're pulling your hair out.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to watch the space around Kevin Love. Indiana Pacers, I think they'll be competitive. They've got a decent roster. Rick Carlisle obviously will bring the ass-kicking style he does in that first couple of weeks of training camp. I'd be interested to see if he can get him back to the Nate McMillan style of disciplined, hard-nosed basketball. I think they can definitely be a team that's just solid on a nightly basis with their roster. They're playoff bound. I don't think they're going to make much noise other than the first round. I think maybe they'll get the championship the first year, pro, and then not get out of the first round for another decade like Dallas. That'd be a win right now. You'd take that, wouldn't you?
I would take it. If you could win a playoff series there, you could take it. Obviously, Carlisle and I are not on each other's Christmas card list. That's been pretty well fucking documented. But I think this is his type of team to coach, though. you've got guys that are sort of under the radar as far as like, I wouldn't say underrated, but they're not like, there's no superstars on the team. He's got he's got these guys that are sort of like hard, tough kids that play hard. Sabonis and Brogdon. It'll be interesting what happens at Miles Turner. TJ Warren, I'm not sure about his injury deal, what's going on with him. Karis LeVert got hurt again. I really think that, they lost some shooting last year for sure. Doug McDermott, went to San Antonio. That was really interesting because I thought that he's Carlisle's type of guy to be able to stretch the floor for these guys. So I think, like I said, I think what Rick brings offensively to this team, and he is a hard-nosed guy like that. I think they could do okay if they could stay healthy. Brogdon's not a great player, but he's a solid player. I think they overpaid him, but they needed to in free agency. You put him and Sabonis together. If Turner could, Turner hasn't been happy the last couple of years. If they could sort of get him right and get him going offensively, they could be okay. I think they could get in. They'll definitely, in my opinion, get in the 8. I don't think they could win a series yet because now you're going to have to go against juggernauts in the first round with no home court advantage. They're not good enough to do that. And, they'll be just okay. But I think Rick will get them, 8, 7, something like that. I think he could get out, he could borderline. I guess they're still playing though, right? At 7?
Yeah.
At 7, you're still playing.
Yeah,
so they're playing, but they're a higher seed in the play-in. But I think, like I said, there's no superstar in this team. This is Rick's type of team. He can coach the shit out of them, run all the sets and do all their things. And I think they'll probably be 7 or 8 this year coming up.
Yeah, fair enough. I think so too. Look, if they can just get back to that Nate McMillan, like I said, I think they'll be competitive and fun to watch. And we know people in Indiana love watching solid fundamental basketball, so we'll watch that space. Charlotte Hornets, young, high-flying, flashy, exciting. They're not going to be a fantastic team, top 3, 4, 5, but they're going to be a real fun team to watch. I think their roster's young, talented. I mean, LaMelo's looking really, really good, getting better and better. Flashy, kind of a guy you'd pay the price of admission to watch outside of a team.
Not against the Mavericks in preseason, you wouldn't though.
Not good. So you watched the preseason game, pro? Oh, they were lost by like 60.
Bogues.
How much was it?
I think they lost by 80. No, literally, they lost by like in the 70s. Yeah. So, as long as they don't have to play, Dallas in the preseason again, they'll be better off. But they didn't play. Rozier didn't play and all that, so they did sit some guys. And Hayward didn't play. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't interrupt you.
I mean, good to know. I mean, we take a lot into the preseason, so yeah. But look, I think the question around them, they're playoff bound in my opinion. I think they'll be playing-ish. They'll be down the bottom there somewhere. Will they grow further and build off of last season? I think they had a good finish to the year last season. No one really expected them to be where they were. We had them kind of towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference, starting in this very similar conversation we're having now a year ago for that season. So will they grow further and build, or will they just stay where they are, bro?
Well, Bogues, they did make a couple of good pickups in the offseason. Kelly Oubre, not a huge fan, but the guy is an assassin as far as scoring, coming off the bench and adding offense. Mason Plumlee is one of my favorite centers in the league as far as, solid centers that run the floor. And I think those two guys are pretty solid to add to your young guys. I think you got to always Charlotte's not really a free agent destination. So however you could pick up solid role players to go along with your higher draft picks, I think you're okay. You got Ball, Rozier, and Hayward are your guys, right? You got energy guys and Miles Bridges and Plumlee. You got Oubre, PJ Washington's good. They've got some guys that are decent. They probably have, like you said, and you make a good point though, Bogues, thinking back to my Toronto pick, I'd probably have to change my Toronto pick from here because I think you're right. I think at some point they're going to start tanking. If things don't come good out of the box. So I think Charlotte, because they're young and they don't know what they don't know yet, and they've got some talent, they got some young guys is going to push all season. I mean, they're not going to tank. I don't think MJ is going to do that. I think they're just going to go full out. And if Hayward could stay healthy, if Ball, Hayward, those guys stay healthy, Rozier stays healthy, I think they could be a solid team, like someone that's challenging for that 10 spot. I don't think they're going to get...
Hayward's the key in my opinion.
Yeah, Hayward's definitely the key.
Because obviously he is paid him that way, but what was noticeable last season was they looked very good in the first 3 quarters with their up-tempo run-and-gun style. When shit dried up, and Hayward wasn't in the lineup, they just had that one less guy to be able to get him a bucket off their own merit. That's what they were really missing. And yeah, it was noticeable when Hayward wasn't out there for late game buckets for him. When they were in the free-flowing game where they could get up a 10, 15-point lead and sustain that, they were really good. But in those tighter games, they just lost a lot of those games based on not being able to get a key bucket late. And that's what Hayward, if he can stay healthy, will provide for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hayward played very well last year, and I think if he just knows how to play, and he can put guys in position, and he can make shots, he can straight line drive, he can pass the ball. Not a defensive stopper by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a good player, man. And they've got solid players. They got a good coach. I think they could probably get to the 10 spot, and not as high as you probably have them. I got them a little lower probably than you, but I think they're a good team. They're going to keep fighting. And if they could just stay through, you always mention the Bogues about getting punched in the face. If you could just get punched, take those punches, continue to pick yourself up and fucking keep going hard and just try to get over that hump. It might take another year or two for these guys to really get to where they need to get to. But hey, look, you got some exciting players. You just got to keep going and take your lumps, but continue to figure out why you play well and why you didn't, and just stay with it. I think they'll be okay.
Yep, we'll watch that one. Orlando Magic, full rebuild here.
Oh, fuck.
It's going to be ugly for a few years in Orlando. They're playoff bounced, obviously. They could finish dead last, in my opinion, in the East. They are looking at their roster. No disrespect to the players on there, but I mean, you got Mo Bamba.
He is playing well. I got to give it to him.
Decent preseason. Michael Carter Williams, RJ Hampton, former NBL player. Jonathan Isaac coming back from injury will be interesting. Franz Wagner, Moritz Wagner, the brother duo. See how that goes. Robin Lopez, Terrence Ross, Wendell Carter Jr., Cole Anthony, Etuan Moore. I mean, there's just not a whole lot there. Gary Harris might be decent for him. I just don't see it. Jalen Suggs obviously coming in as their highly touted rookie, so I don't see them winning many games. It's going to be ugly. There's going to be no one in stands in that brand new shiny arena in Orlando, and that's probably as much as you can say about Orlando, I think, at this point.
If we relegated Cleveland to the fucking LEB Gold, you're going to relegate these guys to fucking Iceland, Pro B in Iceland, because they're fucking brutal. And look, it is what it is. They're not very good. They don't really have a lot of talent. They just got a lot of players on their roster. They're young. They're going to try to do something with it. Terrence Ross has been solid for him, but Cole he's coming off an okay year, a decent first season. Wendell Carter has been inconsistent because of injury. They just don't have a lot of things to go with. They're young and they can play hard, but they got very little talent. Jonathan Isaac's a big deal for them because he's been hurt the last couple of years, and they need something. They drafted, obviously they're trying to get better. They're young, but I just don't see it.
Fultz is still there as well.
Yeah, Fultz is there. Fultz is there. I think they drafted Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner's brother. Yeah, and even Mo Bamba, I mean, he played well at the end of the year. He's playing okay now. If he could turn the corner and be a serviceable, rotation player for them, that's okay. But they just don't have talent. And look, Jalen Suggs, I think Jalen Suggs is a decent player. I don't think he's anything great. I think he's like Murray from Denver, like a good player, solid. I think could be maybe a third best, on a good team at some point. Gary Harris has underperformed the last 2 years. RJ Hampton hasn't showed anything yet, but they're all young. So the problem is with teams like this, they're gonna get their balls fucking, thrown in the dirt time and time again. And do you let the losing, do you succumb to the losing and have that mentality come February? Look, everybody's going to say the right thing right now in November, October, November. We're young. We're going to be tough. We're going to be this and that. Okay, that's great. But what happens in February? What happens in March if this thing goes really bad? You got to keep them together. I think Jamal Mosley's a very good young coach. This is a tough takeover for him, but he's got to take these lumps too and see what he has. But they just got to stay together, and they got to deal with this, because Orlando's not much of a free agent destination. You don't have a lot of talent in your roster. You got to go through another draft or two before you could even make any type of headway. So these guys are going to have to get their dick fucking knocked in the dirt, and they're going to have to fucking get up, and they're going to have to get up every day and continue to just fight hard and try to get a few wins here and there. And you got to stay with it. I think this team is definitely not playoff bound. I think they're playoff bound bounced. And yeah, they're just going to have to be tough and take their lumps and keep going forward because, they got no other choice. And it's fucking tough. It's not like college where awful fucking teams can, play Division II teams to get a few wins on their fucking belt come, before fucking conference time. Every game's a fucking battle in the NBA, even though guys don't play hard until April. You got no fucking easy games on your roster, especially Orlando is one of the worst teams in the league. So there's no easy games in their fucking roster. So it's tough.
Fun fact, bro, they're still paying Timothy Mozgov this year.
Timothy. Good old Timothy Mozgov.
They obviously stretched. They must have got him. I don't even know how he ended up there. It was obviously trade. And they've obviously stretched stretched his deal because that was a big deal that he signed with the Lakers, I believe. That'd be still that same deal. They've stretched it out. They're paying him $5.573 this season. I don't know where the hell he's even at in the world, but good on him, man. Take that money and run. Next one, obviously I've got Orlando playoff bounced. Miami Heat, solid roster again. Now, Tyler Herro, self-proclaimed Luka Doncic. In fact, you called him, what'd you call him? Tyler Doncic?
Tyler Doncic.
Yeah. Doncic, yeah. I mean, he will need to be, if they can get back to the bubble form they had in 2020, I can say that much. I think they have a good mix of vets and youth. Are they that much better than last season, though, bro? I'm not sure. If Tyler Herro's saying he wants to be in the same conversation as Trae Young and Luka Doncic, I don't see that yet. I think he's a good player, very inconsistent at the moment. But if he can get to that level, they might be championship or bust if he thinks he's Luka Doncic, bro.
Yeah, Bogues, NBA players never have a shortage of big balls when they're telephone tough guys when talking about this stuff. They're obviously gonna say it to the day they die that they're at this level that they're clearly not. Look, I think he's a very good player. I think he had a very good bubble. I think, I remember sitting with him when he was in high school at one of these camps at Nike and they had us going over film. And I'm like, yeah, you got to play like JJ Redick. Like this is what you do because he could really shoot. At the time he committed to Wisconsin and, he was going to go to Wisconsin. That's where he's from. And he ended up decommitting and going to Kentucky. And now he's been this fucking cult hero because he's tough. He talks shit. He dribbles the ball. I was way off on it, because he shot the shit out of it in high school. But, he could do so much more than JJ can offensively. I don't think Tyler Herro is going to be Luka Doncic. I think that ship has sailed. I think he could be a really good player. Luka Doncic is a fucking MVP.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a fucking MVP. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say, Bogues, 100 players matter in the league. 40 players really fucking matter. And there's only about 7 to 8 really fucking great players in the league. And to get to Luka Doncic's level, Herro's still trying to get to the fucking, I would say he's trying to get to the top 50. In the league, because there's a lot of fucking good players in this league. And to say stuff like that, good. Hey, look, if that gets you psyched up and that gets you going, great.
That's the conversation, right, bro? I mean, is he saying it to give himself a goal to achieve? And
yeah, and he's working with Drew Hanlon. He was one of the best trainers in the offseason stuff. I've known Drew a long time, and he's really helped a lot of players. So he's invested in it. I don't think he can get there. Look, you got to do it on your own fucking team too. Like if you're trying to be at that level, you got to be better than Jimmy. But to get to Luka, you got to battle out of this mass grave of fucking players. You're about 50 players below fucking Luka. So you got to battle out of the fucking mass grave you're in. You got to still beat out guys on your own team like Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. You got to do it every fucking game. And it's tough. And it's got nothing to do with being fucking down on Tyler Herro or talking shit about Tyler Herro. That's not it. It's the reality of the NBA. You got to be really fucking good, in this league to really move up these spots. Look, in a year or two, can you get to the top 25? Maybe. They really like him there. He's an asset, obviously, but what about your game is great? Luka Doncic has probably got the best vision in the NBA. He's elite at that. And then he does a million other fucking things. Don't get me wrong. But that is his fucking skill. He's a Hall of Famer just on that. What can you do that impacts the game? He shoots 30, he shot 36 from the 3 last year. He's a good athlete, not a great one. He's not a big time assist guy. He's not a lockdown defender. He scores and he's good in transition. He can make some open shots, but he doesn't do anything great. That, like, if you're trying to get into that, and it's great to psych yourself up. It's great for fucking people to tweet it or retweet it in the media, and just fucking replay it and shit. But like, okay, so when you're trying to break it down to reality sense in the NBA, there's no fucking way. Now back to the team itself, they're a good team. They're solid. Their roster's good. I'm not a huge Kyle Lowry fan, but it was a pretty good pickup for them. Duncan Robinson, in my opinion, didn't have a great year last year. I think he regressed just a little bit because he had to have a bigger role last year. Now he got fucking paid in the offseason, so he's got a little pressure. It's interesting to see what happens there. Oladipo obviously is not going to play. PJ Tucker, let's see how much longer he could do what he does at that level. Bam obviously is a good player, and then their bench is okay. You got Hero coming off the bench, but they lose Nunn, who went to the Lakers in the offseason. They don't really have great players. They got Markieff Morris is okay, Dedmon's okay. The interesting thing, I wonder how deep that this team can go in the playoffs. Obviously they got one of the best coaches in the league in Spoelstra, but they're a good team. They're playoff bound for sure. Like last year, I think I had them in the finals. Of course, they fucking, they wouldn't make it if I said they're going to make it. But I don't have that same energy with this team yet. I think they're good. I think they're playoff bound. I think they'll be in the top. I'd say the top 5, in the East, and see what happens. I think they're playoff bound, of course. So we'll see. Where do you see them in the playoff, Bogues, in the whole picture of things?
Somewhere where I probably have them 4 to 7. 5 to 7, somewhere around there. So they'll be battling potentially with Boston and a few other teams in that mix potentially. A successful year for them would be top 4, and then an average year would be the middle. So I don't know. I don't love their roster, but it's Miami, man. They get it done. They're the beacon of consistency. They're the Spurs of the East. So I think they'll
the beacon of consistency. Holy shit! Have you been reading fucking Strauss's fucking Substack? That's something like that's a statement I think he would say. You got to pay $49.95 a month to hear him say it. But sign up now. See if you can come up with some of these gems.
Been reading the dictionary in these grim times, man, because it's almost more entertaining than the news. So,
no doubt.
Story for another day. The Washington Wizards. I have them just missing out of the 10. I haven't playoff bounced. I mean, it's a close one. I think they could be either or. I love Beal. I love him as a player. I think he's great. Plays both ends. The roster isn't horrible, but they're the one that I put a line through just based on letting in Charlotte and a few other teams. The Bulls obviously getting in there as well. They have a chance to scrape in the play-in. One thing I'd watch, if they start poorly, I think the Beal trade train's going to be gathering more steam. So I think the start of their season is key. If they start off well, they've got a chance to scrape into that play-in. But if there's any kind of adversity, injuries, adjustments to this, to that, we obviously know Kuzma's trying to play a bigger role there now. How does that all fit in?
Oh, God.
I just think that watch this space if they start poorly, I think. And by that, I mean the first 3 or 4 weeks start poorly. I think Beal's going to be on another team by the trade deadline pro. But I have them playoff bounced, and I think that's a coin flip.
Yeah, it's close. It's really close. And I don't think these guys are going to be in to tank. I just think that they might have to make some moves if they don't play well, right out of the gate. I think it's very scary to have Kuzma on your roster if he's going to be in. Again, I'm not with these guys day to day. I have no intel on it. But if he's going to have the mindset of, I don't have LeBron or I don't have LeBron or I don't have Anthony Davis anymore. This is not my team, of course, but I get this big role. Maybe I could be the number 2 guy and try to do too much. Kuzma is a very good player when he plays his role. When you get him in a box and he's like your 4th best guy and he can do some things and run out in transition, and especially if you got a really good point guard with great vision. They don't have that on their roster. So he's going to have to set up some stuff himself. And that's a little scary because I just don't think that he's that type of cerebral player that can to do things like that. Obviously, we love Beal. That's no doubt. KCP with less talented roster, he came up, he came up big sometimes for the Lakers for sure in the last few years. Besides in the balance sheet, every 2 weeks he came up big, in the stat sheet sometimes.
Dinwiddie's a good pickup for him. I think Dinwiddie will help.
He is. He's solid. Dinwiddie is solid if he can stay healthy.
Also, I like Harrell. I think he had obviously a down year individually, statistically not playing a huge role with the Lakers. I think he had a great year before that with the Clippers. So I think that he'll have an opportunity to get some minutes, and his energy on a bad team will be infectious. So hopefully he might propel them to win a few more games than they should. And I think his energy will help them win on some of those bad nights you get in the NBA. Like I said, this was a tough one. Thomas Bryant's coming back from ACL. He was having a really good season. I like Gafford. I don't mind that kid, Daniel Gafford. I think he plays a lot of energy off the bench. Bertans is there on a big contract as well. The other one is Denny Avdia. Where do you see him?
Yep.
I mean, from Maccabi Tel Aviv, didn't have a great rookie year. They tried to play him. He got his minutes. They were trying to play him. We know they got Hachimura as well, who had a decent World Cup and whatnot, Olympics and whatnot. But I think Avdia is there. They invested a lot in him. He was a high pick.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's okay. He just doesn't really do anything great. I think sometimes when you take guys from overseas, they get a little overhyped. Look, if you're looking at this as a long-term development project, he could develop into maybe a solid starter, fifth option. I like Hachimura. I think Hachimura is better in the starting lineup than Kuzma is. Like, if I was them, and to get everything going, I would probably put Kuzma in the second unit and let him really, call plays for him.
Yeah, just jack it. Yeah.
And go ahead. Like, if you want to do that, and maybe it's going to help your game, but it's not going to help us in the starting five, whatever. I like Hachimura. I think he plays with a great sort of he plays his role. He's good. And he's got talent. He's very good. And not a great player or anything, but it could be a good fourth option. Montrez is his attitude, body language stuff day to day. You never know what you're going to get from him. He's a good player. He's solid, but you don't know what you're going to get, which is pretty fucking scary. Bertans, which, fucked me majorly on my fucking fantasy team last year because he just didn't have a great year last year. I like him. I think he's very good. He shoots the ball. He shoots the three. He's got size. He's sort of like Matt Bonner on steroids. I think he's a much better Matt Bonner type. He's got to be able to do something. The problem is they got so many guys now, Bogues, Kuzma plays the 4. Hachimura plays sort of like the 4. Bertans plays the 4. It's not going to be a lot of time there unless they play Bertans at some stretch 5, but you got Harrell there coming off the bench. So they got to figure out what they're going to do. Aaron Holiday's nice off the bench. They just got to, again, they're going to get punched in the face. They got to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to keep Beal? I don't think Beal's going to want to stay. I don't think the team's going to do great. They got a rookie coach that, yes, has experience, but not as a head coach. So I think there's going to be a lot of shit going. If I'm them, I'm probably looking to trade Beal, maybe get some assets, maybe get some young players and maybe some draft picks or something like that. I don't know if I would try to do like a Dame Lillard for Beal type of trade, if you're going to go player for player there. But if you got if you got CJ, from Portland and maybe Norman Powell for Bradley Beal, maybe I'd think about doing something like that. It'll be interesting. I don't know. I don't like playing that. He's not going to be their bullshit thing. But I think they're playoff bounced. I just don't think they're good enough. The East isn't great, but I think there's some other teams that are sort of more well put together as far as unity, got a coach with experience and sort of better talent that they could sort of propel themselves in the top 10 versus Washington.
Yep. Yeah, well, watch that space. That was the only one I had that was tough. Atlanta Hawks, for me, can they take the next step and get to the finals? My opinion on them is, did they overachieve last season and get further because of everything going on in the East? Did they get lucky with the Ben Simmons thing, potentially? I think I just don't see them getting that much better. There's some comparisons to the Warriors, funnily enough, of 2013, 14, the pre-finals run Warriors, of the Atlanta Hawks being in a similar journey or trajectory, veteran big guys, a couple of veteran, around Trae Young. They've got some scoring, good balance. So people are trying to compare to that. Trae Young, obviously, the next Steph Curry potentially with the way he plays, some similarities there. I'm just not sold. I think they'll be top 4 in the East, obviously playoff bound. I don't know if they get to the conference finals again, bro. I don't know. They haven't really. You look at their roster, obviously starts and ends with Trae Young, John Collins. Obviously, he hasn't signed his deal yet, has he? He hasn't extended, I don't think. Could be wrong, pro. Is he extended?
Let's make you look good. We'll edit this shit out. Let me check on it so we can edit you out. This is 2 weeks in a row. You got a fucking streak going there, Bogues, that I saved you as usual. Hold on a second. John Collins extension. I'm just busting the balls. Yeah, so John Collins, August 4th, 5-year, $207 million fucking dollars. Can we have the meme, the gif of the fucking kid from the fucking Little Rascals throwing out fucking money out the fucking window, like the black and white picture of that fucking guy?
He's not that guy,
little
bro.
Kid.
You're saying he's not that guy.
50 fucking $million, Bogues. $50 fucking $1 million for him. I mean, that's a lot. All right, actually, I'm sorry, $40 million. It's I did my math. 5-year, $207 million. That's a lot of fucking money. All right, go ahead, Bogues.
I'm not going to edit that out, but I'm going to leave that in for our listeners. But yeah, look, I mean, I think you're banking on Trae Young, John Collins, long term, pieces around him. I like Capella at the 5. I think he's a great role player for them. Provides perfectly for Trae Young's game, lob threat, doesn't need the ball. Bogdanovic is key to them. I think it's a second primary ball handler to score for them in the half court. Gallinari's not getting any younger. Lou Williams, obviously very, very old now, but can still provide a role. Herter's the X factor for them. If he can make another jump this season, he can really help them. But other than that, I mean, I just don't see Cam Reddish. Obviously didn't play a whole lot towards the end last season, came back a little bit. He's another one, but I think they'll be about where they were last season. If they get to a conference finals, I personally think that's an overachievement. But I think they're playoff bound, but I don't think they're not going to better what they did last season, bro.
Yeah, I mean, what they did last season, it's sort of like bubble-ish with like Miami did. You know, they really like jumped it. They just started like riding the wave of success of, you know, doing some upsetting during the playoffs. And they got, look, young team with confidence that, you've been around it, in Golden State. When you got young guys that are fucking, you weren't this young. They were probably a little older than this, but not much. Like once they start getting confidence and you start rolling, it's an infectious thing. I think they're good. First of all, Nate McMillan is a very good coach, and he sort of get them going in the right direction, sort of like grouping these guys together. Trae Young, look, they're like a hodgepodge group. Like, you don't think that this team together could do, individually can do a lot of things. But you put these guys together, they play well. Like, you got Capella as a lob threat. John Collins is a lob threat, and he's a tough kid. I like DeAndre Hunter. He plays well. Herter, he plays well. Bogdanovic, if he stays healthy. And that bench is okay. Like, you got Gallo, again, if he could stay healthy. Gordy Deng's not bad. Herter coming off the bench. Will Williams could give him a little bit. They're good. I think they're solid. I'm with you. I don't think they can get to a final. Can they get even to a conference final? I think they could at least get deep into a second round situation. We don't know what injury situations other teams will be or other situations teams will be dealing with. So we don't know matchup wise now, but I think they're definitely playoff bound. I think they're definitely in the 8. I think they can definitely win a playoff series. They could probably go at least deep into a second one, possibly get to a conference final, depending on what happens in Brooklyn and how that shakes out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They'll be an entertaining team.
Yeah, just a matter of, I just don't see them bettering the conference finals. I think they did, a lot of things lined up for them, but yeah, I think they'll be a second round and out team. But it all depends on seedings and health, and we'll watch that space. But to compare them to the Warriors a little bit early, I can see the kind of similarities, but they're still an Andre Iguodala and a few other pieces away from comparing to that team. All right, we're going to touch on the Ben Simmons thing, but we kind of did with the Philly preview around the chemistry in the locker room, which then leads us on to that there's been some team officials, which is I think is warranted. They've recently discussed a monetary repercussion to players who ask for a trade or do what Ben Simmons is doing. Quote, there's got to be some sort of penalty or fine, said one assistant manager, and then a prominent agent basically said that these guys sign the Supermax, then want to be traded the very next day. It is the new trick of the trade, said one longtime agent. My question is, isn't this already a fucking rule? I thought there was already a rule around publicly asking for out, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think you're fined at some point doing it if you publicly say you want to get traded. Look, it's a players' league, Bogues, so players run this shit. Whatever the fuck the player wants to do, you are handcuffed to your team, your players, as far as whatever the fuck they want to do. If they decide they want to hear the coach, you fucking roll with it. If they decide they don't hear the coach, 9 times out of 10, you're going to fire the coach. If they want to play, if they don't want to play, if they want to sit, if they want to play, you're totally, especially your really good players, you're totally whatever, you got to roll with it. And if they sign a supermax and they want to leave the next fucking day, you got to deal with it. Most of these guys, Bogues, if you go down the rosters, how many of these guys stay with one team? How many Dirk Nowitzkis are there? How many Kobe Bryants are there that it's going to stay forever? I think it really hurts the small market teams like the New Orleans and the Memphis Grizzlies and teams like that, where guys are going to say, fuck, we're out. Like, we're going to do our second contract with you, because there hasn't been any player that sort of said no to that second contract.
It's more lucrative.
Maybe maybe they force a trade like Porzingis does, and then they have to sign their second deal, non-supermax with their next team. But yeah, so they're going to go to two contracts. Most likely, you're going to lose your guy before the third contract. Not always. You have some guys like a Dame Lillard that's going to stay with you and through some deals. Bradley Beal will stay with you through some deals. But most of these guys are going to fucking bounce. And what are you going to do? There's nothing really you can do. You can't keep them there against their fucking will.
Yeah, but there has to be something, pro, because the small market team just continue to get screwed. We're going to see it again with Zion in the next year or two. I can bet my house on it. We both know it's going to happen. We're just waiting. But it's like, I get it's a loophole, because if you don't want to stay with a team, don't sign the Supermax would be the logical theory. But then you're telling a player to leave an extra 30, 40 million over 5 years on the table, because they can, as we discussed earlier, they sign with their own team. They get a bit of a bonus. They get an extra year, and they can get more on the total of the deal. But there has to be something put in. I'm not sure finding guys is the way, because with this Ben Simmons thing, it's like, okay, you fine him once for saying he wants out. Is it then a free for all? Can he continue to just say he wants out, or is it per comment? I mean, we haven't seen that. It's generally been one comment, you get a fine, 50, 100K, whatever. A team or someone that he's going to, or an agent will pay it, whatever it is, comes out of a commission. But there needs to be something implemented, I think. I'm not sure what it is, what the strategy is, but it needs to be heavily frowned upon. But at the end of the day, you put a rule in for that, and then his minders and his people will leak it to a journalist or a reporter that breaks news, and a Shams or a Woj, and then it's going to get leaked that way anyway, right? So then how does the NBA then fine a player for it? But it's just the ugly side. It's a loophole. It'd be interesting to see if the union and with the union, let's not forget they're strongly against this rule. They don't want players hampered to a city. They want freedom, but it's not good for the game long term. Players bouncing around, especially with the Supermax shit. Like, if you don't want to be in New Orleans, Zion, don't sign the Supermax. But then when you go on and sign a Supermax and then ask for a trade a year into that deal, it just doesn't smell good. And I think it just hurts the purity of the game, pro.
Yeah, it's tough, Bogues. Like, if you're looking at it, I think it depends on which side you're looking at it for. If you're looking at it from the player side, you want your freedom. If you're looking at it from your team, like, look, we build around these players. This is what we have, especially if you're a small market. We can't replace a Zion Williamson like some other guys can. If the Lakers had salary cap room, they can get any free agent they want. But if you're Memphis, if you're New Orleans, nobody fucking wants to go there. Let's be honest, unless you're going to overpay him. So, like, to keep these guys, and if you're going to lose them, like, what are you going to do? And then you, like, whose side are you going to take? If the player really wants to leave, okay, so he doesn't say anything. But, like, what if the team could trade him whenever he wants? So I could see why each side, like, sort of has their deal. Do you do it like football, where if you lose one of these, like, franchise tag players where you got to get a certain amount of draft picks minimum in the trade? Do you handcuff a player's salary where, like, okay, so you're super maxed out, but if you do get traded from the team, then you lose out on some money. Like,
I think that's a good one. I think you lose that supermax privilege if you want out. So,
but the problem is, Bogues, if you don't initiate it and the team just trades you, now the team can play God as far as fucking how much money you get. So, like, if you're, say, Boston and you sign Tatum to a supermax, and then, like, maybe at some point you say, we don't want fucking Tatum, we want him out. And then you just trade him, and he doesn't want to go. He's just being Jason Tatum. He doesn't demand a trade. So you just trade him, and say he loses on his last 3 years.
I only do it, bro. Sorry to cut you off. I only do it on these cases where someone comes out and publicly demands a trade. So if Boston just didn't want him, if they signed him to Supermax and Boston has said, hey, we don't want you anymore, they eat that money out. Bad luck. You're paying him. The Supermax carries on, and you don't get nothing back. What I'm saying is, if Tatum came out and said, yes, I've signed my Supermax, but I want out tomorrow, they say, okay, we're taking away that extra year that you got from us, or that extra $5 million a year because you signed with your home team. That comes back to us. it doesn't carry on with you to the next team. I think that definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, something like that. I think, Bogues. I think like if he wants out and say, look, this is an open contract now. Say, look, if you want out, cool. You can say you want out, but you officially have to say that you want out. And then if we do trade you, we don't have to trade you, but if we do, then I would say the rest of your contract, I would say, not a last year deal. So say if you have 3 years left and say your Supermax was 10 million average higher, and I don't know the numbers, but say it's average of 10 million over the 30 million over the last three that you would have got more because it's Supermax versus non-Supermax, then I would take the 30 million out.
Exactly.
If you publicly want to do that. Yeah. Because
Yep,
a player could, if you're a Supermax player, you're going to make that money up. But like, look, if you want out,
$30 million, bro. It'll change. It'll change some guys' minds. It'll change that agent commission. All of a sudden, pro changes on $30 million. So yeah, I think it just throws at least it puts the onus back on the player. Like, hey, yeah, cool. You wanna do that? These are the rules against it. So be very, very careful. I think that one makes sense.
Don't you fucking dare have the producer fucking, take my voice out and then say you had this fucking idea. I want it on record that I had this fucking idea, you asshole. I know how you and that motherfucker that does the producing fucking works in sync on this shit. You know.
Shout out to Nick. Yeah. He's not a fan of pro.
Nick, good job, brother.
All right. So last one before we get to the financial stuff. We discussed a little bit on the Q&A later on about Beal now. Apparently he's not vaccinated, but he can play in New York and San Francisco and LA if he's a road player, but Kyrie can't as a home player, we get into that a little bit later, so stay tuned for that. Finally, I know you don't like talking about these, but is the writing on the wall for the Blazers? There's reports if they don't start well, a la what we discussed with Beal, they don't start well, Chauncey isn't Dame's guy that he wanted, blah, 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 blah. He will ask you out. What do you think?
But Dame would ask out, yeah.
Like, let's say they start 10-15 or some shit, and it's like, fuck, don't like Chauncey's system. I'm not getting shots. We're losing. He's going to ask out, right?
Bogues, in the best of times, when even things are going okay, these guys want to go. Yeah. And they flake out and they want to go. Now, Dame probably is one of the most dedicated players to his city that's playing in the NBA right now. Like, he's stuck through these guys. He could have left a long time ago. So whatever he wants to do, him and Bradley Beal are probably 1 and 1A on being dedicated to this city. But I think that it's a good question, though. I think he'd want to go. Like I said, in the best of times, these things go bad. They go well until they're going to go bad.
And he's been a trooper, bro. He's been a trooper. So, yeah. If he did, I wouldn't be as kind of anti it as like Zion asking out, because he's gone through thick and thin. Terry was his guy. He got fired. He's tried his best, and that might be a change of scenery for both. It might be one of those instances where you have a very good player. We just can't get over the hump, and we both mutually divorce. I don't think that's the worst thing in this scenario, because he's actually put the time and effort in, like you said. This isn't a case of like, I just want to go to a bigger city, get me out. So I don't mind it, and I think it does happen if they don't start off well, bro.
Yeah, I agree, Bogues. I totally agree. I think this thing was going to go bad. If it goes bad, look, you got a coach that you didn't pick. You didn't, not that you didn't want it, but it wasn't really your selection. And then you got, look, this team has, and besides that one time they sort of pumped up in the playoffs a little bit. They haven't done it, and you're going to go and you're probably going to want to force yourself out. Right now, no, but I think if this thing drags on, and the West is pretty good, let's be honest. You got Golden State coming back with all these guys coming back, from the injury stuff and all that. You got the Lakers that retooled. You got these, you got obviously Utah, you got Phoenix. So as you speak right now, in a perfect world, you're like 5. And you never know, like Dallas is going to be a motherfucker. I think Dallas is better than Portland. So like now you're going down to 6, you're going down to 7. It's a motherfucker. Like I said, you got no softies on your schedule. You got very few softies.
Yeah, they're not 5. They're gonna be in that fringe playing to maybe 7-8, I think.
Yeah.
Unless Chauncey just shocks the world. That's some new system where he can play 6 guys at once.
Yeah, I doubt it, but yeah.
You doubt it. All right, so last week, Pro, we got into a conversation led by the great Ethan Sherwood-Strauss, who got us into just, it wasn't really on the sheet, it just kind of segued that way, which is what we want with podcasts. I think people really enjoyed it. Numerous people have reached out. It was to do with, financial fraudsters in the NBA and all the people you have to watch out for. And a lot of people reached out and said, can you do some do's and don'ts, or what are the mistakes players are making besides the obvious of buying a, super yacht or some shit. So I thought I'd do my lucky 13 tips. If you want to add any after this, feel free. But these are my lucky 13 tips that I that I've put together. Now, keep in mind, these are for people that are making, minimum of $1 million to big money, but it's just, some of it's pretty simple. Some of it can be used for everyday people as well, I believe, but these are pretty simple things. So for me, the first thing was tax yourself half your salary. So every paycheck you get, you're taxed by Uncle Sam. If you're living in Cali, that's 50%, 53% of your check is just gone, vanished into thin air. Take another 20, let's say it's 50-50. Take another 25% of that and just put it away. No touch money, goes into a bank account. It just sits there, and then if you want to spend the rest or invest it. That's my number one thing to do with your money, no matter if you're on a minimum or a max.
So say you're 10 million, Bogues. Say you're 10 million.
Yep.
So now you're down to 5 because Uncle Sam takes his cut. With Joe Biden as president, he probably takes another 3. But let's just say 5 million. And now you're telling me I'm getting 5 after taxes. So $1 million out of that, basically like $1 million or so, I think 1.25 million will go into some account. So you're going to tax yourself another 25% of that.
Yeah, actually, I would go. I mean, actually, half of your net. So I would say.
Okay, so 2.5.
Yep.
Yeah. 2.5.
So I'm saying half of half. You lose half. Sorry, I didn't explain that properly then. But yeah, so 2.5 out of that 5 gone. If you can't live off $2.5 million in a year, we've got separate issues, and that's including even if you're fresh to the city, you need an apartment or a house, you need a new car,
right?
You got expenses, you need to budget yourself, but that's it. The rest of the money, you're not touching that. That's going in an account, into an investment account or a bank account, whatever it is. But that's money aside. So if you can get to that point when you retire, I guarantee you'll be okay, right?
Cool.
Keep your financial advisor and your financial advisor / tax advisor and agent separate. Don't have them in the same company. So don't go with the guy your agent recommends, and vice versa. Don't go with your financial guy goes, I know this good agent. Don't do that. Keep them separate. Accountability is key with that. Ask your teammates what their fees are. NBA agents are generally on between 2 to 5%. A lot of people don't know that because I don't talk about it. It's all negotiable between 2 and 5% on playing contracts and roughly 10 to 20% on marketing, commission, shoe deals. Talk to your teammates. That's how you figure out if you're getting ripped or not, and everything's negotiable. I guarantee you some of these guys say, you're charging me 4%, I've been with you for 10 years, I'm only paying you 2 moving forward. They're not going to walk away from that. So discuss that openly in the locker room. Don't be afraid to. If you have dependents that you look after, allocate a budget towards them. So if you're one of those people that's like, I'm going to look after my mom and my dad, my sister, my auntie, my uncle, my best friend, allocate a budget to them if you're going to do that, and it stays at that budget. Where I see guys get in trouble is Uncle Jim needs 100K for this fishing boat, and then they need this, and then there's the repairs, and then you just kind of writing checks left, right, and center. You say, no, I'm giving you got 5K a month. What you do with it is, I don't care. That's your kind of salary from me. We're not going outside of that. It sets a precedent. You're not saying no to family or friends, but at the same time, you're helping them, right? So that's what I recommend as far as that goes. Don't purchase anything expensive expecting your new contract pro. Now, I'm sure you've seen this many times. There's a shitload of players out there that will be like, I'm about to get the max, or I'm about to get paid by the team, going to free agency, rookie extension, whatever it is, and they buy something silly and they get hurt, or something happens, they don't play well, and then they're stuck holding the bag. So don't spend it before you've received it. That also goes with housing and anything else. Another one, a house in numerous cities is a money drain. So I knew a lot of guys that would have a summer house in LA. They play somewhere in the Midwest. They have a summer house in LA. They'd have another house in New York. And they'd spend about a week and a half to 2 weeks in each of those in an off season. I can go to New York, hang with my boys, party, and I've got my apartment. The other 50 weeks it's sitting empty. You got land taxes, you got, water, electricity, all that kind of stuff. So it just becomes a huge money drain for guys. And by the time they figure it out, they're selling it for pennies on the dollar because either the bank's starting to close in or they just need to get rid of it quickly for cash. So don't do that. We have a 401k, which is super plan in Australia. It's called your retirement plan. The NBA matches, if you invest up to $25,000 a year into it, which is the max, they match 140% of that, pro. So right off the bat, you're getting your 25K turns into, 60 odd K, just based on the NBA matching it. That's an incentive to make sure guys are doing it. You don't have to invest. So my advice to guys were, you're getting 140% instantly on your money in your retirement plan, matched by the NBA. You're not getting any better deal ever in your life for anything, pro. So that was a big push for me. There was, funnily enough, guys that sometimes were like, oh, should I put the full 25K in? I'm like, are you fucking crazy? Like, you're not going to get that matched in any, I don't care if you struck gold somewhere, you're not getting 140% straight away off the bat. Even if your investment fund doesn't do well, you've got 140% to play with. So that was a no-brainer. One you've probably seen before, pro. Do not compete with teammates for material things. I've seen this story way too many times. And look, athletes are competitive beings, and it's not just in a layup drill or a 5-on-5 or an NBA game. It translates off the court into houses, cars, watches, beautiful women, whatever you want to call it. That's where I see guys get in big trouble. He bought the Ferrari, I'm going to buy the better Ferrari. He bought the Bentley. The problem is you're going to stay within your means. If that's a max guy buying this, he doesn't think twice about it. If you're a mid-level exception or even vet minimum, I've seen rookies on rookie minimum deals try to compete with those guys, and I'm like, you're going to lose that battle eventually. Like the numbers, I'm not great at math, but 1 million compared to 50 million, he's going to eventually wait you out, and you're going to be broke. So that was another one I had, and that just happens just from athletes being competitive, and that's something that guys have to deal with. Don't fly private if you're not a max contract guy. I think max contract for me is the bar for flying private. I see a lot of guys that are on mid-level deals and lower flying private at times, and that's, for most people, a 4 or 5 seater private jet, you're looking at up to 10K an hour in cost to fly somewhere. Then you've got the refueling cost and the docking, the putting them in a hangar cost if it's overnight or whatever. So stay away from that. You can lease the newest car instead of buying it. Leasing is a great vehicle in America to not have to put upfront money for something. So if you want a $100,000 car, you're not forking out $100,000. A 3-year lease would be roughly $70K. People will say, well, the car's going to be worth more than that at the end of it. Who knows? But then you're not outlaying that cost of that money. You can use that for something else. Another one, learn how to say no to family and friends at times, which I discussed in the last podcast. Pretty simple one. This one's probably the biggest problem that people face investment-wise, baby mamas and divorce. I know a player who's paying $30,000 a month in child support, bro. $30,000. In fact, I know numerous players. I know one that was paying close to that and actually got sued for more. That's one. So in your married life, invest in your relationship to try and not get divorced would be probably the best investment advice you can get, because if you get divorced, that's 50% of your net worth gone. Last one, network. Courtside ticket holders are usually the most powerful businessmen in your city, wherever you play. Go and say hello to them, talk to them. They're probably doing something that's, doing very well in your said city. Network with them, and then just diversify, so invest with them. They'll have networks, do all that fun stuff, and you'll get going somewhere. One I missed, sorry, pro, was a stock portfolio. If you can start a stock E-Trade account or whatever, just put 0.001% of your money in there and just play with it and learn the hard way, make mistakes, and put some money in there that you don't care about. And this goes for regular people too. Put a couple $100 in. That way you learn about how it works. And once you're actually investing real money that could potentially change your life or hurt you or help you, you kind of know the ins and outs. I see a lot of people investing in stocks, even crypto now is the new fad. I'm going to invest in crypto because it's the hot thing, and they're getting really stung. So that's my rant, pro, as a non-financial advisor. What are your thoughts?
Well, how about my 14th? Don't give power of attorney to somebody that doesn't even have a last name, that just has a nickname that's named after a fucking cartoon. How about doing that? That might save you. But no, I think all that stuff is good. Like the investment part. Hey, folks. So the 140%, is that 25 grand max, or?
Yeah, it's 25 grand max. You can invest more into your retirement fund if you want. The match is up to, so I can put 100K in, but they'll match up to 25K for 140%. So it's just a no-brainer that a lot of guys, even if you're making 600K, it's a no-brainer to do, because you can obviously access that in retirement. You can take it out earlier, but there's penalties, much like most
for sure
retirement plans. But that one's the biggest no-brainer of all time. It's like, even if that fund makes you zero over 10 years, you still got 140% return over 10 years. So you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, the private thing. I remember Rodman, hearing stories about Rodman dating Madonna, and he was flying her around private and flying himself around private. He did that shit until he got the first fucking bill. The first bill was like 6 figures, and he never did that shit again.
Yeah, it's expensive.
That stuff's ridiculous though. Like, hey, look, if you're making max money, you're making Steph Curry money, Draymond Green money, yeah, you can do that. But if you're on a rookie deal, you're right. Like, I've heard Chicago Bulls stories where people were trying to keep up with Jordan. I mean, it's a fucking joke, right? Like, that stuff is just ridiculous. And that's why 80% of these fucking players end up broke. You just gotta chill. Like, you could live as comfortable as possible, but family kills you. Like finances kill you as far as like investments on bullshit, and just giving up your power of attorney, not putting your money away. You just gotta chill and enjoy it, and say no to people. Like all those things that you said makes total fucking sense that 80% of people won't do. And you're giving them the answers to the test. They're used to getting answers to the test. They played at Power 5 schools. All their tests were given to them. So that you're giving them the fucking
allegedly.
answers. I'm sorry, allegedly, right. But like you're giving them the answers and they still fuck it up. It's like you can't feel sorry for them. I'm sorry. Like there's too much information. If this was like the 80s.
And that's the regular Joe.
Yeah.
The regular Joe just can't feel sorry for you because it's millions of dollars, right? But there are some guys that get swindled and you gotta study up.
Yes. The swindling, I feel bad. Yeah. The swindling, I feel bad. But like you got like in the 80s, they didn't have this information as much. The 90s, they started to do it. And in the 2000s, you started really hearing about it. You got all this information. You should know what's going on with this stuff and that you could invest wisely. And yeah, they just don't do it. It's fucking ridiculous, man. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's tough. And you have to make mistakes. You have to make mistakes along the way. That's why I recommend people doing a small E-Trade or stock account and playing with it yourself, making the mistakes with small amounts of money. So then But yeah, man, it's just one of those things. And everything's today, you can find and learn about fucking anything on the internet, So whether it's good, bad, or the ugly, you type something in and that shit's going to show up. So it's the same with financial well-being. And I highly recommend studying up. I did a course on it. I've mentioned it a million times, and it was the best thing I ever did for my personal financial kind of management. But hope that answers some people's questions. Now, remember that spiel I gave? This is by no means any financial advice. So if you want to come and sue me, fuck off. We're going to move on to stats, useful or useless, and then we'll get to fact or fake news and wrap it up. We've got our Q&A at the end. So, preseason. Everyone loves preseason. Josh Giddey, 13.5 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 52.3% from the field. This one shocked me, 40% from the three. Useful or useless?
Useless. Well, I don't like to sit on fences, but useful in the sense that, look, he played minutes in actual. I hate fucking summer league. You know that. Like preseason is a lot better, not much better, but it's a lot better than summer league. But it's not actual NBA basketball, but it's closest you're going to get to actual NBA basketball. To average like 40% over 5 games or so, that's pretty good. Like those numbers are good. The 40% is probably the only number I call bullshit on until is a bigger sample size. But so I don't know where I put this. I would say useful. Useful. The 40% is bullshit until game 20. Yeah, then we'll see where it's at. But this other stuff is pretty promising, man. He's played hard. He's showed that he can play. I would say useful. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say useful. I mean, and he's getting in the lane. I watched a few of his games. There's a knock on, he's not that athletic. He's not this. Man, he's getting in the lane at will, and he's got some shit to him in the lane, up and unders, and just makes the right play a lot of the time. So I think he's gonna play himself into a pretty decent season. The 40% one's shocking for me because he's 3-ball. Even he discussed it when we had him on the podcast. It's something that needs work, but it looks better. He's shooting it with confidence. If he continues in the mid-30s, I mean, his ceiling's much higher than even I expected. So we'll watch that space. We're big fans of Josh Giddey on this forum, so hopefully he can continue to kill, and he's going to get minutes regardless, good and bad, which is the best thing about this. He's going to a team that's going to develop him. All right, next one. Last year the Suns went 0-4 in preseason, while the Bucks went 0-3. Both were in the finals. The Lakers haven't won a game in preseason. Useful or useless to tell us about preseason, bro?
Completely fucking useless. I mean, if you take any.
I think it's useful. No, the other way, bro, because it's saying how useless preseason is.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
The stat itself.
Yeah, I'm pretty fucking stupid, let's be honest. Yeah, I agree with that. That's useful then because, yeah, preseason records mean fucking nothing. It's like winning summer league championships. Nobody gives a fuck, except the ticket takers at the front door. But no one gives a fuck. I agree. This is useful.
Yeah, I think it's useful. I think coming off our Giddey rant that it was useful in preseason. I mean, he can only play the games that he's played, and he didn't play in summer league. Let's not forget he got hurt early. But yeah, as far as the preseason records, that's why we kind of tread lightly when overhyping anything that happens in preseason. Games are much more spaced out. There's not as many games. You're still in training camp mode. Yeah, let's wait till the big lights come on in November and December. This one I really liked. From December 1990 to the 1998 NBA Finals, the Chicago Bulls never lost more than 2 straight games of Michael Jordan. That's from SportsCenter. Useful or useless?
Useful.
Man, that's a hell of a fucking stat.
Yeah.
We never lost more than 2 straight games. That's really hard to do.
Bogues, the guy never played in a game 7 in the finals.
Yeah.
That's got to say something. Imagine that. All those finals series, and if you were in 2, that's one thing. When you win 6 and you never played in a game 7, it's pretty fucking remarkable, man. And like, I was talking to somebody that day, and I was asking, I said, how is the relevancy of Kobe Bryant? And like, how many more years until players start forgetting about him, like the younger generation? And he goes, well, Michael Jordan is a myth to a lot of people because like you only have YouTube, you don't see it. Like we've seen it obviously, so we know. But like he's a myth, and no one like young players can't even relate to him anymore. They relate to Kobe because he's fresh in people's minds. He played a few years ago, and but like in a couple more years, like 4 or 5, like that stuff, people are going to start having to relate to LeBron James and some other guys because he's just so far removed, which is crazy to think, right? But to think that he never lost more than 2 games in a row in those finals runs over that period of time and never went to a game 7, never lost a final series is pretty fucking amazing.
It is. And there's numerous, like we had that in Golden State. We had, whenever we lost 2 in a row, it was, I'm not sure if we did. I think the second season we definitely didn't because we didn't lose many games at all. But we had that in our minds. Like once it was 2 in a row, we're like, all right, guys, come on, what the fuck are we doing? And it'd be there'd be a bit of hostility in the room leading up to that next game. I believe the Sacramento Kings, Vlade Divac's hero with C-Web and I think it was Mike Bibby at that time and Peja, they had a rule that if they lost more than 2 in a row, they had to go out for team dinner or wherever they were. And I like that as well. There was, there was a rumor that Vlade actually drove the team bus when it happened too, which was funny because he had a bus license apparently, and he would be the one driving everyone on the bus at 6 after they've lost a tough game, more than 2 in a row, and then they'd catch up and then they wouldn't lose very many more 2 in a row plus. So I like those kind of things and those kind of stories.
If you told that to young players today, that if you lose 2 in a row, you have to actually go out with your teammates, every team in the fucking league will go 82-0 because nobody wants to go out with their fucking teammates. Let's be honest, Bogues. Like that's like pulling fucking teeth to most of these guys, unless it's a veteran team. None of these fucking young players want to go out with their teammates. Yeah, it just is what it is.
It's strange. Yeah. All right. What do you got? Fact or fake news?
Bogues, we're going to stay with the East. It's our theme today. Tyler Hero makes the All-Star team. Fact or fake news?
Fake news. I think he's making the All-Star team. Not this season anyway. I think he's still a year or 2 away. He might jack him up. He might inflate his numbers a little bit, but I think Jimmy's getting on the All-Star team before he does from that team and even Bam. So they're not getting 3. Not getting 3 on the All-Star team.
Bogues, it's hard to be an All-Star. You know this. Like, you could put up numbers. You could average 20 plus a game. And to be an All-Star, though, in your conference, 12 fucking players, you got to be in the top 12 in your fucking conference, which isn't easy. Guys like, Dame Lillard, it was hard for him to make playoffs for a while. Bradley Beal, guys that were like motherfuckers. And we're talking about number 1 options on decent teams for sure. And they had hard times to getting on. So when you just say, I'm going to be an NBA All-Star, it's fucking tough. Forget about comparing yourself to MVP candidates. And obviously Trae Young's not an MVP candidate. Luka is, but Trae Young's an all-star level player, who's probably going to be talked about as a perennial all-star player. So to get into that is fucking hard enough. But I just think that there's too many players ahead of him right now. I mean, maybe if he averaged 30 and those guys were really good come All-Star break, then maybe you could put him in that category. I just think it's going to be too hard for him. I say it's fake news.
Correct.
Vegas win totals for the New York Knicks is 41.5. All right. Do they get over the 41.5 win total? So do they win 42 games this season?
Fact. Yeah, I think they do. I think Thibs' team, he'll be well above 500 in my opinion. That'll be a very tough team to beat in New York with that crowd coming back the way it has been. The energy's back in the building. I like the acquisition of Kemba, so I think they'll be above that. I will go put some money on that right now. Yeah,
I would too. Tibbs is a very good coach, and he's got management that's sort of behind him. And as you know, you've seen both ends of it. When your management lets your coach do what he needs to do and just gives them the assets that they need to win and through draft, free agency, trade, and the coaches are looking over his shoulder how to do it. Like, you have a situation where he doesn't want to shoot threes, but the front office is forcing him to shoot threes, blah, 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 and all that stuff. They know that he plays, he plays his rotation players a hell of a lot of fucking minutes. There's no load management with him. He's all about it. He's all about fucking just, beating those guys into the ground with minutes. And they seem like it's okay with it because he's had success there. They're tired of not having success. So they let him do what he does. They got good talent. They don't have great talent yet, but they have good talent. I think it's fact. I think they're going to win. I think they'll win about 43 to 45 games. I think it'll be close, but I think they get over the 41.5 win total that Vegas has. Last one. Boston gets out of the first round. Fact or fake news?
Oh, fake news. They're going to be down the bottom half of the conference anyway, so they're going to be facing one of Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philly, Atlanta. So no, potentially even Miami up there. They're not fake news. They're not getting out of the first round.
Yeah, Bogues, I think home court advantage is so big in the NBA playoffs. And like, if you're going to get to 5 and you're very close to the 4 team, the home court advantage still means something when you lose it. But, you might be able to overcome 4. Just because you're so close, if you could steal 1, you're in good shape. But when you're playing a 1, 2, or 3 seed in the first round, I think it's almost impossible. It's not impossible, but I would say it's very unlikely that you're going to win without home court advantage. So I don't expect the Celtics to do that. I don't expect them to get to 5. I expect them at best to be at like 7, 6 or 7 top, probably more likely 7. And it wouldn't shock me if they were playing like a low-seeded playing team. But like, I just don't see them overcoming, that adversity of rookie coach. They don't have great talent. They got good talent. So it ain't like one of these guys who takes over, it's not like a Steve Kerr, who takes over a big time team, when they already went through the shit. This team really hasn't gone through the shit, even though, Brown and Tatum has been deep into the playoffs before. Like, they've got a lot of moving pieces here, plus a rookie coach, that it's not going to be easy to win games in that conference. So I don't think they're going to win the first. I don't think they're going to get out of the first round. I think it's fake news.
I agree. All right, off to our Q&A.
All right, welcome to episode 38. Q&A on the Callin app basketball series. So a reminder, if you have not downloaded the app, please download it. And we will get started. We have Dan. We'll welcome into the show now to ask a question.
Just a question for you, Bogues. 2 parts. Listening to your Gorgon podcast the other day, who do you think modern day or older would be 3 NBL players that would fit in the modern NBA game? And the disconnect between the NBL and local basketball associations in Victoria, how do you think that can be rectified?
So your first question was current or present NBL players that could play in today's style NBA? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so older players, e.g. Gaze or Heel, even like Vlahoff, do you reckon they'd be a good fit would have been a good fit for modern day NBA?
I think as far as transitions, I think Sam McKinnon would have been one for sure. I think Sam McKinnon was a kind of tweener 3-4, but with the way the game's gone, he's 6'7", 6'8", really athletic, streaky 3-ball, wasn't a knockdown 3-point guy, but could knock down 4 one game and then maybe not make one the next, really streaky. But I think he's a guy that definitely could have transitioned. Simon Dwight was one as well that I thought he never really. I think he had 1 year where he went over to try to make it in the NBA or did a camp or something, I believe. I could be wrong, but he was a guy that, man, he was an elite rim protector.
He was an amazing shot blocker.
Yeah, amazing shot blocker, but he had the 3-ball, which was he didn't use it a lot, but he had it feet set. So in today's game, if you can get a rim protecting big that shoots threes, they're very rare. I mean, Brook Lopez probably one of the few that can do that at a high level. Miles Turner maybe, but usually it's one or the other. So that'd be another one. And Gaze had a little stint. Shane Hill had a little stint. Another name, Vlahov maybe, but I just don't think he was athletic enough to play in the NBA. Gaze probably gets more of a run now, I think, in today's game because the athleticism isn't as important if you can get buckets, if that makes sense. So I think he'd probably get more of more of a stint pro. I don't know what you think about that. You think Gaze in today's era would have a better chance?
Oh, yeah, just because how the floor spread and how space is so important, how he could just shoot. And he's pretty crafty off the dribble when they ran him off the line, too. So I definitely think Gaze would have been a very good player, like, probably a little like similar to like a Jason Campano or someone like that, Matt Carroll. Better than that. I mean, those guys had pretty long NBA career.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. A lot of it comes down to timing. So you have to obviously time it. But I guess the other part of the question, the disconnect from the NBL to junior associations. I mean, I know Melbourne United's trying to do a really good job with engaging junior organizations and all that kind of stuff, or associations. But to me, there seems to be just a massive disconnect between association to association in Australia and Victoria. You've got all these rivalries in states. So this association hates this association. You want natural kind of sportsmanship-like rivalries. They're normal, but to the point where, they won't share resources, or they're offended that this kid got picked in the state team over that kid and all that kind of stuff. And then So then you got that within metro regions. So Sydney, Melbourne, all those associations are rivals to a point of hatred. Then you've got the country versus metro. There's a hatred there. Then you've got state to state. I mean, and for us to be, you want those rivalries, but you want them in a sportsmanship type manner, and that's what he's lost. You have to be able to share resources at times to better junior development. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of junior associations out there that just value winning over everything at a young age. And let's be honest, it's great to win an under 16 state title or domestic title or rep title. Fantastic. But no one's going to remember that shit at the end of the day. It's a great story to tell when you're 40. I remember that day we won a championship, and that's about as far as it gets at a local barbecue. But the onus should be on junior development. I think there is a bit of a disconnect there, but I don't see it necessarily as just an NBL to association disconnect. I think it's every kind of state runs their programs differently. Like New South Wales is ran completely differently to Victoria's, ran completely differently to Perth and WA, and I'm not sure what the solution is. I think on a national level there needs to be some unison in how it all runs and then funnels into one kind of collective. But in saying that, we've done a pretty good job in development over the last couple of years. So, the last decade anyway. So, I guess your question will probably be around how much better could it get if it was done even better.
Hey, look, let's go. Another question for Dan.
What do you think of the Dante Exum situation now that he's been waived by Houston?
Great question. I just saw that actually. Pro, you might probably know more than me about this. I think his deal was a 3-year non-guaranteed 15 or something like that. I might have read, and I think that could be a part of as to why they've waived him to maybe then re-sign him on a team-friendly vet min deal or something along those lines. Pro, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't know. As far as I have thoughts on it, but I don't know about if they would do that or not. I think that usually you sign 3-year deals like this, non-guaranteed. You have certain thresholds that you have. Depending on, date on the roster, and then different things, sort of trigger in. I mean, it could have been just he got beat out and they want to go younger. I'm not sure 100%, but it's interesting because even for him, for $15 million, 5 a year for 3, I mean, it's a very team friendly deal. I mean, even if he got vet minimum, so like, what's he going to be at 2.8? Saving $2 million. I don't think they're at the threshold where they need to. They're not obviously even close to Golden State where like they gotta watch every penny that they spend. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe he just doesn't have it for them. Maybe they just want to go younger. Even though he's not that old, but I'm not sure. It's funny because of all the Olympic stuff and how good he played and fit into a role and seemed like he was in great shape. It's hopefully somebody else picks him up and it'll be tough for him because all these rosters are set and there aren't many rosters that are left, roster spots left. I don't know, maybe Golden State, I think they were keeping their 15th spot open. Maybe they take a gander at it. What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure what the deal is. Sometimes these things can be contractual, like we just said, where they have a handshake agreement and say, hey, listen, we're gonna terminate your contract, cut you, release you, and then re-sign you in a month. Or I've seen that happen before. Maybe Dante has a potential vet min deal with someone else in the works and has just said, look, where am I at? Are you guys going to pick up my option? I need to know. They said no, we'll let you move on. So who knows? I don't think he's out of the league. I see some Australian NBL fans already saying, telling NBL teams to call him and get him to the NBL. I don't think he's in that position yet. I think he'll have an opportunity to sign, with numerous other teams. But it's just, it's one of those things where you just need to figure out what his fit is, I just don't know why he can't get a backup role somewhere. I mean, he really had a great Olympics, and where he really surprised me was he was erratic offensively in the Olympics. He had a few high turnover games from the point guard spot. There's questions about whether he's a 1 or a 2. Doesn't shoot it well enough for a 3. Does he handle it well enough for a 1? He's in between that. But he was really good defensively, man. Like really, really good. Length. It looks like he's finally figured it out that he can create some havoc on the defensive end. So, if I'm a GM, you can do a lot worse as a guy from 6 to 10 on your roster, and you're not doing any better on a guy that's 10 to 15 on your roster. So I'm kind of shocked that he just can't seem to stick. But I think if I was a betting man, I think he'd be on an NBA roster within the next couple of weeks, bro.
I think so too. I mean, if I'm a team looking in, why not? He doesn't need the ball in his hands, even though he can't really impact the game offensively on the perimeter shooting. Consistency, I would at least want to have him 10, 12 minutes a game, being able to defend, being able to just run in transition, being able to make corner threes if he had him, in there. But just the way he defends and he doesn't need the ball in his hands, maybe like a poor man Cephalosha back in the day, just something like that. But even if you don't trust him to be a starter or someone who plays high up in your rotation, 10, 12 minutes a game, especially with all the young guys they have, and I know the young guys they draft, they're like Jalen Green and things, they need minutes, and I understand that, but I think he'd just be a very low risk, very solid player to have off the bench. Maybe you're right. Maybe they sign him back in a month. Maybe he's got a deal somewhere else and they just wanted to let him go early enough where maybe he could jump on another roster of a team that maybe kept that 15th roster spot open. I don't think he'll be a two-way player or anything. I don't even think he qualifies for that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we're looking at a D-League situation here.
Yeah, I think you hit it spot on. I think the other play for him, for those wondering how this all works, would be even if he doesn't get picked up now, he'll just stay, I assume in LA or somewhere, continue to stay in shape, and there's going to be an injury eventually to somebody, and that's the other strategy you can implement. It could be a veteran team, it could be whatever, and he'll get snapped up. He'll be probably the first, second, third guy on that list if there's an injury to a Lakers or a Brooklyn or someone that needs someone that can come in and help. So I think we're a bit premature putting him in that NBL basket right now. I think he's still got a few more good years of basketball in the NBA to prove that he can stick before the NBL's. If he was 30, 31 and this happened, you'd be like, okay, like maybe he just comes back home to Melbourne or wherever he signs in the NBL and settles down and just gets back to, knuckling down and being somewhere for 3 or 4 years rather than bouncing around. But yeah, he's what is he, mid-20s, if that? I think he's very, very young still. So he's got a chance. Any other questions? Thanks for that one, Dan. All right, Joe, welcome to the show. Unmute your mic and ask your question.
Did you ever get in trouble for having sort of provocative views with your teammates, or was that mostly just sort of in the media?
Did I? No, I didn't. Funnily enough, I don't like to think I have provocative views. I think I have views outside of what's Hollywood or mainstream. And funnily enough, those views and topics are discussed at times in the locker room when the cameras are off and the lights are off. And I'll tell you this, that a lot of opinions in the NBA locker room are different to what they are on camera. And an example would be I'm still really good friends and was really good friends with Harrison Barnes. And we would have heated debates on numerous things, whether they were political, sporting, world events, whatever it was, and oftentimes agreed to disagree. But it was a civil adult conversation on things. It was never personal, and he explained some things to me that I never thought from that perspective, and me vice versa, and we were still great friends to this day. So, I mean, for the most part, conversations in NBA locker rooms will be a trending topic on social media or in the media, and that's about as far as the conversation will go till it just can't go too deep because guys aren't just that well read for the most part. They don't really get too passionate. But Harrison was one of those guys that really studied what he was talking about, and so did I, and we had great conversations. So I didn't really get any backlash, at least in my face. I've heard murmurs behind my back, but that's just a part of everyday life with anything you do, I think. Pro, what about you?
Yeah, you know me, Bogues. I'm not really all that. Well, I mean, not for politics. I shit talk and I go at players and they go back at me. But I've gotten in trouble sometimes for for talking too much shit to players and stuff. Carlisle fucking tore me a new asshole a few times. One time was fucking great. I'll tell this fucking story. This is an all timer. So I'm a huge fan of Ted, right? So, the movie Ted with what's his name with Mark Wahlberg.
Yep.
So he got me a Ted teddy bear, just because just to fuck around, and it swore it had lines in it like from the movie, and it swore. It was great. I rode it around in my car, like I had it in the front seat of my car for like 2 months. So we were in Utah, and me and Jose Calderon, we fool around, we joke around. I've got a great relationship with Jose, and before the game, like I don't know if I like gave him shit or something like that, and Carlisle screamed at me. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like, it was before the game, no big deal. Game's over. I don't even know if we won or lost. We get off the plane, and I'm walking off, and he goes, hey, cut that fucking Jackie Gleason act, all right? And I'm like, huh? And, like, Jackie Gleason's like a fat actor back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. He, like, big-time comedian. And he's like me, jolly, but always fucking around. And he goes, stop that fucking Jackie Gleason act. And I got fucking pissed. So I get out. It's freezing fucking cold out. I got our security guy, and I was driving him back downtown because he doesn't drive to the plane. So I go, fuck this guy. Before the security guy got in my car, I took the fucking doll out and I ran it over twice, and I left it on the tarmac. And we drove out, and security called the security guy and flagged us down, and he forced us to come back and pick up this doll that had a fucking tire fucking mark on it. And I said, fuck this guy. I never told the security guy. So I must have fell out of my car. I had no idea. I ran that motherfucker over, Bogues, and put it in reverse again. It was his fucking gift. I just wanted to leave it there so he could see it walking out of the plane. But, nah, I never really got in trouble. You know me. I'm not really, like, I'll fuck around and stuff, but I know what line to sort of not cross. But that's probably the closest thing I did to get in trouble. And I got fucking fired.
Anyway, yeah.
Maybe it did attribute a little bit.
Yeah, you got fired anyway. So you should have went gung ho. Would have worked out the same.
Yeah. It's fucking hilarious. I still have it in my garage. It's got a fucking tire print all the way across the fucking body. It's fantastic.
Have you still got it?
I still got it. Yeah, I'll take a picture and send it to you. Unless my wife threw it away, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Joe. Thanks for your question, mate.
Thanks for that. I grew up in Union and live over here in the States, so I love your podcast. Makes me stop being homesick.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Mr. David Sachs, welcome to your own app.
Hey, Bogues, how you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. So, hey, I don't know if you covered this earlier in the show, but I wanted to ask you about the Kyrie Irving situation. What do you think about this? Did he really turn down a $200 million deal because he didn't want to get the vaccine? I don't know the man at all. Is that basically the entirety of the story? Is there more here we don't know about? I mean, it seems like an extraordinary decision, whether it's something you agree with or not. It seems like an incredibly principled decision on his part. What do you know about this situation? And I guess that's my question.
Yeah, thanks, David. Ron and I had a debate about this a couple of episodes ago. This was before it came out that he's just going to sit out, and I think it is interesting. I mean, there's a lot of people that have their opinion about Kyrie. He's had the flat Earth comments before, and they label that straight in with the anti-vax stuff. He's basically said that he's somewhat fighting for everyday people that have had mandates put on them that they have to be vaccinated to work. That's what I read in his comments. He did an hour or two long. Did you see that spiel on Instagram?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and I think he made some valid points about it. Now people are questioning whether that's the real reason why he's not taking it. Is he hiding behind the fact that he's saying he's sticking up for other people? Is he really? But that's something that he's expressed. We'll never know if that's the truth or not, but you can only respect the man for his word. And I think around the contract stuff, David, I think it's future earnings as well. So he's on a max deal right now. He's losing money. And then I think people are saying there's a potential for him to have another, is it one or two more Supermaxes Pro? I think it's one more, right?
Yeah, I think it's one more.
Yeah,
to be honest, I think it's something like,
it's a lot of money.
I don't know how much it was, though. It was 180 million. Is that number right, or maybe
Yeah,
more?
it'd be close to 2. Yeah, if they're on all 2, it'd be close to 2 over whatever term. So yeah, he's risking that. Obviously, if he stays in his stance not to get vaccinated, I highly doubt anyone's even giving him the vet minimum. I think people are just going to want to stay away from it because of the ramifications. So it is very interesting.
And I don't think he's eligible for it, Bogues. I don't think he's eligible for Supermax because he's not with his original team, unless they change that rule again. But originally, you cannot get Supermax money. Now, you can get a shitload. You can get $50 million a year and whatever. You can go up. But if you're not on your original team that drafted you, I do not think you're eligible for Supermax. But you can you could sign a big deal.
It'd be close to 200.
It's just not like yeah, absolutely.
It'd be close.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision. I think it's just one of those things that you have to respect his decision for. And I'm interested to see if he goes the whole, we discussed this 2 episodes ago now, Pro, whether he goes the full gung-ho and actually, it seems like he's that one guy. We kind of both agreed that we had Ethan Sherwood-Strauss on, that he's probably the one guy that would go gung-ho on this, Pro. I don't know if you still feel the same way, but it seems like he'd be the one guy that might stand his ground and just say, I'm not doing it. And, whether direction it goes, whether the teams or the NBA eventually just say, oh, you know what, we'll get on with it. But the other interesting thing is, which we have in our run sheet, is Brad Beal. I think he hasn't had the vaccination either, I've just read. He can play in San Francisco and New York as a road team player with no restrictions.
In LA.
Yeah, LA, yeah. Yep, California for the most part. Without any restrictions, but Kyrie Irving being the home team guy can't. So, the double standards and the logic around this is a whole separate debate. But give me your take on Kyrie, Bro.
Yeah, Bogues, I mean, look, on the one end, he's had issues everywhere he's been with, being difficult. Now, if he's right, if he's wrong on these things, I mean, almost everywhere he's been, I don't want to say a problem like getting in trouble. He's not one of those guys. He's just sort of, he's sort of very heavily opinionated. And sometimes it just gets in the way of doing some things and, burning some bridges sort of along the way with his organization stuff. He chooses not to do the vaccine. Look, I don't agree with it, but look, that's him. And like you said, no one's going to find out if it's the real reasons for not taking it or whatnot, standing up for people or not. Hey, whatever he does, he does. But I mean, obviously Brooklyn's going to stand strong on this, and they're just going to wait it out. I think if it doesn't get rectified soon, meaning he doesn't sort of end up taking it, I think it's very possible to see a Kyrie for Ben Simmons trade, in the works. For those 2 guys, possibly. I don't think that Portland would ever take him for Dame, but maybe a package of like CJ McCollum and some stuff as well. But if I'm Philly and things are going like this with Simmons, definitely got to get rid of him. Irving's a pain in the ass, but like you put him with Joel Embiid and the other players, why not? You could ship Simmons out. Therefore, now Kyrie can only miss a few games and not.
No, but then technically Kyrie could then play in Brooklyn if you got traded to Philly, right? per the NBA.
Yeah, he could play for yeah. And I didn't even think of that, Bo. Of course, you thought of that. I didn't even think of it. But yeah, maybe that happens. I don't know, but
he's been on record saying that he will retire if traded, right? Did I read that right? I'm pretty sure.
Well, he went. Yeah. Well, he went back on his Instagram and said that's not true. That he's not going to resign. And like people putting words in his mouth. I'm not sure. You know how NBA players are, Bogues. Stephen A. or whoever could have got it right, and then he just wants to sort of say, it's not true, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen. You never know what's inside these guys' heads as far as where they're at. Like we all said, though, if there is one guy to do all this, it's him. He's always got to be right in every room that he's in. And, just to make a point, he might say no, but $200 million is a lot of fucking money. I think I think he would get traded before anything. I don't think there's a lot of guys that would trade for him because you just don't know what you're going to get. But there are people that need to win games and need that talent on the roster that they would take him. And like, I think if I'm him, I'd want to go to Philly. If I'm him, I'd want to, maybe I'd go to Portland. And I mean, it would be a little ugly, but him and Dame in the same lineup. Like, there are a few spots that he would probably say, yeah, I'd go and, deal with that. But, Yeah, I don't know.
So let's say
you know me.
today, bro. So today, right now, the NBA and they put in a mandate saying if you're not you're not double vaccinated, you're out of the NBA. Do you think Kyrie still doesn't vaccinate?
I think he vaccinates at the end of the day. If they're going to put it to him like that, instead of saying you got to jump through hoops, I think he does. It's a lot of fucking money. And he still has got ego like every other player. And what is he, 30 years old? Like, I think he does.
It's interesting because he's on record. He's on record saying that he's not doing this for the money. He's doing it for everyday people that are having mandates put on them, and if they don't get it, they get fired. So it's hard to backtrack from that now, because then you get the sellout conversation of if you do it, So I think
that's true.
I'm shorting it. I'm saying I think he's all in. I think he's pushed his chips to the table, a la David Sachs when I play him in No Limit Hold'em, and he takes most of my money. But yeah, I think he's pushing the chips to the table and saying this is me. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I also say I'm not going to eat 4 bowls of cereal after 11 o'clock in Bogues, and I've lost that bet 20 straight times. So we'll see. He wouldn't be the first or last NBA player to go back on what he said. But you're right. If there's one fucking guy in this league that's got the balls to do it, it's him.
Thanks, David, for your question.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but sometimes I push my chips into the middle of the pot, and I don't win the pot. Sometimes other people get those chips.
Appreciate the question, David.
All right, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Take one more.
You got anybody else?
Charlie, yes. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Hey, Pro. Hey, Bogues.
How you doing, man?
My question, I'm doing well. Calling from New York City. My question is around if you have any take on Joey Ingles and like the locker room dynamic potentially there with Utah and the mandates.
In what sense?
Just I guess larger picture around Kyrie and what the impacts will be with players' individual decisions and how that impacts the locker room behind the scenes, because we see Twitter, Instagram, and pretty soon what will happen on camera. But how does something like this impact the locker room and the chemistry with a team?
Okay, regarding Kyrie, did you say Joe Ingles first?
Yeah, but that was just one example, but just broader. How does something like this impact the behind the scene dynamics in the locker room?
Yeah, I think there's two takes. I mean, I've seen Kevin Durant's comments about it. I've seen him referring to that he's barely spoken to Kyrie, which I find strange. He's barely spoken to him about it all. I guess it's each to their own. Karl Anthony Towns is very outspoken about it because his family's had COVID, so he's very pro. I know the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, Joe Tsai, I believe he's heavily, heavily pro-vaccine at all costs. So there's different conversations. I mean, my opinion in all of this is that someone's decision should be their decision, that they will be called selfish because they're not putting the community first. But I agree with Kyrie to an extent. It's his body, and if he decides not to do it, he's got to deal obviously with the repercussions of it and the rules around it, as Pro said many times. But I still think as human beings, you have the right to say yes or no what's going into your body. I think considering where the NBA's been the last 3 or 4 years with a lot of the social justice activism and whatnot, I would hope most players, whether they agree or disagree with Kyrie, actually agree with the fact that he should be able to make his own decision. I would hope, right? You don't have to agree with it, but you should agree with the premise of, hey, this guy, he's made his decision. He has to live with the consequences of it, but we support him being able to make his own decision, even if we disagree with it. And I think with everything that's been pushed from a social activism point of view and, helping minorities and that, well Kyrie's a big minority right now, technically, by the stance he's taken. So you should support that if you're for all those other causes, but you don't have to agree with what he's doing. So I think it's a tough one. I think players behind the scenes, some would be supportive, some would be sniping at him behind his back. Very few would say it to his face, I assume, Pro, but that's just the reality of the NBA. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. There's going to be guys that are going to do it just because the team said. You're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sign me up. What do I need to do? I need to put 10 of these things in. I'll do it. There's players that think it through more and probably make a decision based on themselves. And then you've got people like Kyrie that are just probably a bit more disagreeable, that are just like, I don't want to do this because I'm told to do it. And that's his right. That's how I feel about it, bro.
We saw, like a few weeks ago, Draymond came to Wiggins' defense pretty publicly.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, bro.
No, I just think all these guys will support it until it really affects them. And then I think, look, I can't speak for anyone, but I think I could speak for human nature, and everybody's going to support it until, like, if I'm James Harden, if I'm Kevin Durant, like you basically went there partly because of Kyrie being there, and now like you're all in a unit. Yeah, you're saying that you support it, whatever it's his choice, but now you're in a unit. A huge part of your salary cap is with a player that's dead salary that you're not going to use them until he decides to take it or you trade him. So now your chances of an NBA championship went down about probably 20% or so, not having that guy in the lineup. So you got to be thinking, shit, I could have signed anywhere else. I could have gone anywhere else, but I decided to go here. Yes, because of the city, because of the situation, maybe because of your coach, but very much so because we're going to have these three guys together with this roster. So there's definitely there has to be animosity. Like Bogues said, it's not going to be to his face, but it's going to be behind his back. Yes, you support everybody's decision on other teams not taking it, but if it's going to really impact you winning a championship, you got to be fucking pissed about it. Regardless of what you say, regardless of what you say in the media, you got to be fucking pissed because now you're going to miss out this whole season on this guy. And then, you're not going to get equal trade value back. So now, I mean, yes, you could still win a championship without him, but I mean, you would just think that, hey, just take the thing. But like Bogues said, I agree with that. I think he should have his right to choose, but but you got to deal with the repercussions because of it. So you got some interesting deals and we'll see how it shakes out. I'm sure this is not the first or last time we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, and let's not forget, Pro and I probably both agree that we don't. I mean, I don't know if you've changed your tune, Pro, but I don't think we're at a 95% double vac rate in the NBA.
Fuck no. Fuck no.
So like, how heavy is Kyrie in the minority? I think there's a lot of players that haven't commented and that probably are in that boat of still either not making a decision or have. I know some players that have had. Are double vaccinated but still support Kyrie quietly. Who knows where it all goes? This is just a shit show of a time we're living in. I think everyone looks outside their window. The world is on fire, as Pro says. We just need that meteor to come and just reset things. We can get on with life.
I'm waiting, brother. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Hey, Pro, man. We've got a lot of listeners, man. We've got a lot of listeners. So for this is our biggest
27.
Yeah, our biggest tune in for the Callin app, which is a fresh new app. So Charlie, thanks for your question, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, thanks again for joining us on the Callin app for that Q&A. Remember, if you want to join that, please download the Callin app. You can jump on, get your voice heard by Pro and I. Thanks, Pro. That wraps up episode 38. Next week, we will do our Western Conference preview, so tune in for that, and we will see you next week, bro.